Catacamas in eastern Honduras, on the Talgua River, a popular picnic spot for locals, a cave was stumbled upon. In a limestone cleft 100 feet above the valley, waterfall lazily tumbling down towards the river below, one of the most important archaeological finds in the whole of Honduran history was made. The cave mouth here was merely a gateway into a much larger network of winding pathways and gloomy caverns, and deep within, hundreds and hundreds of human remains. A great ossuary of Honduras's prehistoric people. Usually, the climate and acidic properties of the soil in this part of the world conspires to completely destroy human remains. Which is why few, if any, prehistoric bones have ever been found in Mesquite. But here, unique properties of this cave caused many of the bones and skulls to crystallize, preserving them to be seen today. Astonishingly, the earliest remains here date to around 1000 BC, and the place utilized for a period of another 1000 years. This is one of the earliest grave sites found anywhere in the Americas, and the oldest in Honduras. And it isn't just bones found here at the Cave of the Glowing Skulls, but artifacts too. Perhaps offerings to the ancestors or deities, including pottery and precious goods, obsidian knives, marble vessels, and jade necklaces, themselves originating considerable distances away, suggesting access to far-reaching trade networks. The cave itself is seen as sacred in the Mesoamerican worldview, like mountains in the Old World, being a place where the lines blur between living and dead. In the right circumstances, allowing access between them. Therefore, at this point in time at least, a similar worldview to the rest of Mesoamerica can be seen. Perhaps the people interred here were ancestors of the Mesquite civilization. Perhaps not, but it is many hundreds of years until identifiable settlements begin to appear in the Mesquite region. Modest structures beginning to be identifiable in the archaeological record from around 400 AD, just as Copan begins to rise in the west. Today, the indigenous people of eastern Honduras tend to speak a dialect of the Chibchan family of languages, suggesting links to the south as well as the north. Mesquite is right on the edge of the Chibchan speaking zone, prevalent from here all the way down to Colombia. The most well-known example being the Muisca, a city-building civilization famous for its gold work,
oh my God,
its king being the basis for the legend of El Dorado. Thus, the original inhabitants of the Mesquite may have originated or at least been influenced from the south. Yet, this seems to change with the rise of Copan, coinciding with the beginning of archaeologically verifiable settlements in the area. By 800 AD, Copan was a vast city home to 25,000 people. Yet the countryside around
I got the
it,
Diddy Kong
almost
Racing
all the way to the far sea in the north,
music in my head.
by now being bereft
I was watching
of its trees,
Mr. Ponytails
hacked down to make the white ash
fucking
needed to coat monuments.
RTA.
This was now a landscape of farms, towns, and cities, linked up by elaborate
Man, I should really
roads
just
and
play
highways.
DKR Racing.
When severe
over
droughts
this music
set the Yucatan in the
all the
8th
time.
century, an area poor in fresh water
Oh, no.
at the best of times. Increasingly parasitic nobility and commoner alike suffered from malnutrition. Within a generation, all building projects halted. And by 822, the very last inscription is found at Copan. By 850, the royal palace burned.
Man,
By
my niece and
1250,
nephew and I, we
Valley
love
was
playing that game.
uninhabited wilderness once more.
Diddy Kong Racing? Holy jeez. We
But
will
what
have
happened
memories
to
of
the
that game
25,000
forever.
people of this city?
Yeah,
Surely
we're just
they
getting
didn't
started.
all starve. And compared to the wasteland,
The driving
of mass
dynamics are just so
hunger and
amazing.
war on their doorstep, the forests to the east might have seemed hospitable in comparison.
It's a lot better than the random
Perhaps an ousted group of Copan
Mario
warriors
blocks, you know what I
marched
mean?
over and
I think
took
the
over
DKR
the
did it
area
better.
by force, bringing their culture with
Instead
them
of random
before
blocks,
merging
have
with the local
set
one.
balloons.
Maybe a more peaceful exodus took place,
Genius.
with individuals going east towards their linguistic ties or potential trading partners. Or maybe the elites of the region simply cemented their own power by Mayanizing themselves, citing links to the old trading partners now collapsed. We simply don't know, but with the collapse of Copan, Mosquitia flowered into a new
Probably
age,
just practice run.
a flurry of construction between around 800 and 1250.
In the left strafe, you always get shot because he
Over the
can
course
see you
of the
there.
20th century, archaeologists have uncovered around 200 archaeological sites in the Mosquitia. Almost nothing compared to the likes of the Maya and the Inca, which have hundreds of thousands of individual ruins. Yet, nonetheless, these range from large settlements with vast earthworks to many smaller sites, rock art, cave burials, and clusters of artifacts. Many have never been surveyed, and almost none investigated archaeologically. Like William Duncan Strong before them, for decades, archaeologists like Chris Begley have been discovering sites with help from the local Petch people, documenting hundreds of them. Many of these cities were never truly lost, just hidden. Though nevertheless, because they weren't
Holy
lost,
fuck me,
coupled
man.
with the rampant poverty in Honduras, many have been looted, their secrets lost forever. Archaeology remains secretive here, and with good reason. Even Target 1 and Target 3, remote as they are, remain at risk from looting. There are probably thousands of sites in the jungle, testament to a flurry of activity between 800 and 1250. By 1000, large cities looking vaguely Maya in structure were built, with plazas, elevated platforms, earthworks, geometric mounds, earthen pyramids, and probably ball courts.
Oh,
Most
that's pretty good.
characteristic feature of
Pretty
these
fucking
cities
good
is
attempt,
the
though.
unique rectangular earthen mounds found here, around 100 feet long and 30 wide.
It's a good 3 seconds
Further
faster than
south
my
into
fucking
Chibchan
one.
territory, mounds become circular. And west to the Maya, they become square and made of stone. This was a place between cultures. For the most part, these people did not build from stone. Why would they when they had such amazing wood available to them, such as rosewood, mahogany, cedar, and gum? Fragments of stone architecture does survive in places, though generally these are boulders from rivers and bear little resemblance to what they would have looked like in their glory. Temples,
Oh,
pyramids,
brutal. What
and
was
public
that?
buildings likely
Whatever.
constructed of river cobbles, adobe, wattle, and daub, long since having
Oh,
eroded
what?
away,
I have
like
no
so
ammo.
many other wooden structures throughout history, forever lost to oblivion.
Like what?
In the acidic rainforest here, no organic remains survive. Not even the bones of the dead. Almost everything of these people is gone. In their heyday, temples here made of highly polished hardwoods, decorated by plastered walls, draped with colourful textiles, resplendent with carvings and motifs, could have been just as magnificent as any built by the Maya. And like the Maya, paved walkways atop the forest floor have been found within settlements. Perhaps once upon a time, even stretching out into the countryside to link up cities. As far as what lies beneath the mounds, the vast majority remain a mystery.
Oh, let's go.
Do they hide
baby.
tombs or some other purpose? We know that the Maya
Fine.
and other
Maybe.
Mesoamerican people made artificial caves in their temples, and maybe the Mesquitia started to do this too. Though they continued to use caves as ceremonial places, with caches of objects being found at remote sites. Today, the Mesquitia is one of the most inhospitable, disease-ridden jungles in the world. Yet we know that in pre-Columbian times, city-building kingdoms thrived here. And in other remote forests of the Americas, for thousands of years. Human ingenuity is boundless. But how was this actually achieved? Very little is known about how the Mesquitia people farmed their environment. Though at newly discovered sites like T1 and T3, in areas not home to humans in hundreds of years, and at other sites discovered decades ago, like Las Crucitas, once speculated to have been Maud's city, real insights can be made. At all of these sites, sharp mounds, plazas and earthworks are found lining both sides of river valleys. In their heyday, these may have looked like huge gardens, with plots of maize, beans, squash and chili peppers.
Still don't have that
interspersed
timing
by
down,
public
right?
spaces
It's
for
not
games
right.
and ceremonies. Perhaps along with more valuable medicinal crops, fruit, cacao and flowers for ceremonies. Much of these crops may have been placed on raised, artificial, levelled earthen
Look at that. I gotta
platforms
wait a little longer like
in
that. You
order
see
to
that?
avoid flooding.
See how I wait another half, like a
Connected
third of
by
a second there? I
pathways.
think that's what it was. I need to wait a little
At
longer.
T1 in particular,
I'm just spamming
evidence
all
has
my
been
bullets.
found for possible irrigation canals and even a reservoir, similar to the natural cenotes of the Yucatan, expanded upon by the Maya. It could have made farming possible
that.
in the dry season from
Yeah,
January
baby, I think
to
we
April.
fucking figured it out, my friends. Oh my god, are you serious right now?
The raised embankments at both T1 and T3 could have also functioned a little like a
I
castle.
think we might have just figured it
being a
out,
good
honestly.
defensible
I think
position
our
in
consistency is
times
about
of
to just
war,
get much
from
better.
either the coast or from the post-classical Maya to the west. But what was the relation here to the Maya? Ball courts aren't the only cultural export. As possible evidence of a form of cacao tree has been found at T1, a sacred plant and sometimes currency to the Maya, known as the food of the gods, and perhaps to these people too, a foodstuff only reserved for the elite and warriors of the Maya world. At first glance, city layouts seem similar too, with T3, for example, covering the same space as many Mayan cities, a centre sprawling for 2 miles around. However, the cities of Mesquitia are in fact, for the most part, much more spread out than Mayan sites, which focused on a central focal point, perhaps suggesting less of a central political authority. T1, in fact, may be a collection of settlements rather than a single city. Although the distinction may well be irrelevant, LiDAR shows 19 major sites strung along the valley, all close together, perhaps all part of the same polity, or individual villages with their own governance. One of the most common items found in the Mesquitia must be the metate, thought to be grinding stones, sometimes with ritual significance. Also found in the Chibchan culture to the south. Having no metal tools to chisel with, these items were sculpted using a difficult, extremely lengthy process, using handheld rocks and sand. And it isn't just metates that people were making. Found all over eastern Honduras in the form of small caches of broken objects. Today, finds like these, more often than not, now in the collections of private individuals. Due to the painstaking and time-consuming efforts involved in making them, they could only have been crafted by a specialized class of master
artisans. Not a bad attempt. That's not bad. We're getting used to it.
When all of the looted and collected examples
that was a good attempt.
Found at cities and caves,
even though I let OC up, it's okay.
The centuries are taken into consideration.
I might just do that every time.
This must have been a very prevalent culture. Still, very little archaeology has been done, and it's almost unheard of to find these cached items in their original settings. Until now. In February 2015, humans set foot in the deepest recesses of the Mesquitia rainforest for the first time in centuries. Greeted by howler monkeys with no fear of people, the research team, put together by Steve Elkins, began exploring the lost pre-Columbian city known only as Target 1. For a week, they explored this pristine
really shitty starts.
So hemmed in by vegetation that the outline of buildings and plazas remained difficult to comprehend. Even from the top of a nearby pyramid or mound, the landscape was still hidden all over. The trees having grown tall since this place died. Then, amongst weeds and vine, at the base of a colossal pyramid overlooking a central plaza, the first truly remarkable discovery was made. Dozens of carved stone sculptures peering out from the muddy forest floor. Almost entirely buried by the passing of time, a vast display of hoarded wealth had been left here untouched for hundreds of years.
Like it's too fast.
Similar but much smaller caches of objects had been found before, and the objects
unnecessarily
themselves
fast.
Turn up from time to time, having already been looted from sites. Crucially, few, if any, had been found in their original context and excavated professionally by archaeologists. This was far from a disorganized heap. Everything carefully laid out in its place, almost certainly as an offering to the gods. Taking so many wealth items out of circulation must have been a powerful ritual display. Not too dissimilar to the material sacrifices made by ancient peoples in Europe, such as the Celts. When the cache was finally excavated fully, more than 500 individual items were found, the wealth of an entire settlement. Something momentous must have been happening to warrant such a sacrifice. One of the most interesting of the carvings found bears a resemblance to a monkey at first glance, but has also been interpreted as a were-jaguar, perhaps representing a shape-shifting shaman in mid-trance, not too dissimilar to the much older Olmec culture. In Mesoamerica, jaguars, monkeys, vultures and snakes are all traditionally seen as animals of great power, and it seems that this place was no exception. It's even been suggested that this figure is wearing a helmet, also seen on the famous Olmec carved heads, a staple of the Mesoamerican ball game, which may well have been played here.
Oh, fuck off, man.
A number of ritual stone vessels were also found, decorated with vultures and snakes. Some showed bizarre humanoid figures, open-mouthed with hollow eyes, perched on a small naked body. The ancestors perhaps, or just maybe, tied up captives ready for sacrifice, though we don't know whether these people practiced human sacrifice. The most numerous objects, however, were grinding stones, or metates, found all over Mesoamerica. Looking a little like thrones or tables, these were used for preparing corn, a central facet of life here. Yet these examples are much too large and awkward for grinding. Maybe they were purely ritualistic, or had a different use altogether, carrying the dead to their final resting place, or even grinding up the bones of enemies defeated in battle.
What?
It's all pure speculation at this point, but analysis shows that they're carved of at least 5 different types of stone from different geographical areas, suggesting
I'm so
widespread
terrible. I'm
trade
such a
links.
terrible player.
Unfortunately, carbon dating couldn't be carried out on the cache, but based on the style, the objects likely date from around 1000 to 1500 AD. This wasn't an accumulation of objects over centuries. They'd been deposited at the same time. On a floor of smoothed out, red clay-like soil called laterite, which coats the floor underneath much of the valley. A curious throwback to Cortez and the old land of the Red Earth. Most of the items here are broken, deliberately smashed to take them out of circulation.
That's pretty good.
Out of the world. Like at the Cave of the Glowing Skulls and other ancient cultures all over the world, so they could journey with the deceased to the afterworld.
That was
It's
pretty
the
good.
foreboding vulture carving at the very centre of the cache that may well be the clue to what happened here. Vultures often being seen as guardians of the afterlife. Perhaps this stone represents a shaman who took the vulture as his spirit animal in trying times. The last act of a dying city. For though this city may well have met its end before Europeans ever arrived in the Americas, the most likely conclusion is that European germs proved the final death knell, if not the first. Even if the Spanish themselves never came here, their diseases certainly did. For in 1502, Christopher Columbus's fourth voyage to the Americas arrived on the coast of Honduras, just to the north of the Mesquite, bringing guns, horses, and disease. Animal-born ones that Native Americans had no immunity to. There were no pack animals in Mesoamerica, leading to an extremely one-sided exchange of microorganisms.
Oh god, man.
Exploring the Bay Islands, not far from the Rio Patuca and Rio Platano, the 2 main rivers of Mesquite. Columbus described a large trading canoe, 8 feet wide and 60 feet long, manned by 25 rowers, with a house in the middle heaped with
See
exotic
what I mean?
trade
This natural
goods
stuff
from
is just so
lands far
brutal.
away.
Compared to before, I was getting a
Evidence of the
mainframe
trade network
every
spanning
like
the entire
2
coast,
minutes.
potentially all the way
This
from
is
here
like...
to the Mississippi mound builders of the north, including all the disparate cultures between.
It's like I feel like I've
Continuing
been here
his
before.
journey,
I've tried
Columbus
this before.
found trading ports and towns wherever he went. Of course, he couldn't have known it at the time.
Can I make my endings
the
more
damage
consistent?
was
I mean, not
already done.
really.
Long-lasting
friggin-
exchange networks
Maybe.
becoming arteries of doom.
I was watching Hayden King's
At first,
138, I think.
influenza, typhus, and dysentery ran
And
wild.
his glass or his
Followed
disc
every
upload
few
is
years
really
by
awesome.
wave after
He
wave
goes
of
wide
increasingly deadlier diseases, crashing
and
against
then lures the
already
guards to
devastated
shoot in a
populations.
direction.
Measles, mumps, yellow
And
fever,
then it goes right
malaria,
strafe to left strafe.
chickenpox, typhoid,
And it's so fast.
plague, diphtheria,
It's so smooth.
whooping cough, TB,
And it's
worst
genius.
of all,
I might try it.
smallpox. For entire civilizations with no
'Cause it goes
immunity
really
to this
wide.
disease, death rates can be as high as
Draw
90%.
to lure the guard shots. But it's genius.
Arriving in Hispaniola by 1519, ultimately proving the final nail in the coffin
And I think that's
of the
why it's so
Aztec Empire.
fast. Because
This
he keeps
disease
speed.
likely came up the waterways into the Mesquitia, putting an end to settled life here. By the time
massive.
armies of slave traders began ravaging the Honduran coast by the 1530s, city life here had likely already died. Thousands of years of history and unique environmental
why?
adaptation coming to an abrupt end. The cache of objects found here may have been a grave for an entire city, the last desperate act of a shattered world. We still know very little about the people who once called these forests home. But hopefully, with LiDAR and increasingly sophisticated archaeological techniques, at least a little of their story can be salvaged from oblivion. The city has a name now. This isn't a white city, or a lost city of the monkey god,
What the fuck is this?
but La Ciudad de Jaguar, the city of the jaguar. Archaeology students, go and study this culture
Yeah, this is brutal.
immediately. As always, I've been Pete Kelly. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you made it this far. Let me know what you think in the comments, and go and check out my new history channel where I've just uploaded a video on the Maya. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.
Wow, we actually went through this entire video. It was like an hour and a half. The double duck. What the fuck is this? What was that? Like what? Oh, that was a good attempt.
center of this massive body of water, the Pacific Ocean. Something incredible happened here about 800 years ago. In a seemingly unbelievable coincidence, two archaeological wonders just appeared in the Pacific. One, Easter Island, where seafarers erected giant stone heads. And the other, the even more enigmatic civilization that built a place called Namadol. A legendary complex of man-made islands and stone structures built right into the coral reef. That's where I'm headed. My name is Albert Lin, and I look at the world in a unique way. I use 21st century technology to look back into the past.
Check that out, I can actually fly through the secret ancient world.
With lasers that scan deserts, strip away dense jungle canopy, and scour the oceans to uncover the hidden worlds beneath.
We're wading into uncharted waters. Now I have the military helping me find lost cities.
New discoveries in the most awe-inspiring places on Earth.
That's where pixels become reality.
That fill in the gaps in our story. Who we are, where we came from, and the brilliance that we're capable of.
Here we are in the 13th century.
This is carved out of the earth, huh?
This is the new golden age of exploration.
We know their secrets.
Pohnpei Island, Micronesia. One of the most isolated places on Earth. Almost 1,000 miles from the nearest landmass. It's taken 4 flights and over 28 hours of travel just to get here. Time to go. My contact is local historian Gus Kohler.
How was the trip?
Amazing, yeah, amazing. What is Namadol?
Nanmadol was once the residence of the ruling South dynasty, about 600 to 800 years ago. It's an ancient city. You'd be amazed at the know-how that they had to build the city in the water.
I've heard it's an ancient wonder, rivaling Easter Island or Machu Picchu. But very little of it is still visible. So I'm bringing technology that will strip away the mangroves and reveal its scale. It's an explorer's dream.
We're superstitious people. We believe that it's invested by spirits. So we will have to, first of all, go through the king, or the Marquis, as they refer to, and ask for his protection and permission to enter the site. This is the custom that we do here. There's been rumors of people dying when they don't follow protocol.
Dying?
Yes,
This really happened?
it did.
So what do I have to do to get permission?
We will have to do what we call a sakao ceremony.
The sakao root is pounded on a special stone to create a powerful narcotic drink used for religious rituals. I know that other Pacific Islanders use sakao in a similar way.
Why?
I have to drink that.
Like, why?
The purpose of our presentation before our king is to ensure that the spirits of our ancestors welcome you when you visit Nanmadol. Albert,
I mean, my heart's pounding right now.
My whole mouth is numb. Like when you go to the dentist, I can barely feel my tongue right now.
All who wish to enter Namadol must pay their respects. The spirits we're hoping to appease are those of the Saudalor,
The legendary rulers who arrived here 800 years ago and held a mysterious power over the island's population. Those who built Nan Madol.
We come
What?
here with a feeling of honor to be here in your land.
Thank you.
Ceremony complete. The full power of the cacao drink kicks in.
Yeah, I got you. I got you.
I see like double. It's intense. It's intense. But the most important thing is the king of this land said that he protects us. Which means we're a go. So tomorrow, it's on. Nan Madol.
This is it, Albert. Welcome to the jungle. We are on sacred grounds right now.
I don't know why I turned so
This
slowly
beginning
there,
we see
whatever.
is part of the structures.
Fucking do it.
Never seen anything like this.
Welcome to Nan Madol.
Only a tiny fragment of the legendary Saudalor city can still be seen. Mangroves choke whatever else remains. Now, new technology can help unblock the secrets of this place. How and why it was built, and just how big it really is.
What is that? It's incredible, ain't it? I was born here, but every time I come up here, I'm always amazed. Always. This is the main ceremonial center of Nan Madol.
It's a temple to the island's ancient rulers, constructed
God, these stars
from
are just so
pillars of
fucking
basalt
terrible.
rock. 800 years ago, this place would have been bustling with hundreds of priests, attendants, and the feared Saudalor kings.
Must have been some super powered humans to build this, huh?
This area was meant only for the elite. It was the only time in our history that we were ruled by one person. Almost like a dictator. So he was able to command all the people on the island to come and assist in the building of Nan Madol.
Look, is that more rocks over there? Is that
Yes,
more?
that's an outer wall. Built all the way to the edge of the reef.
Yeah, you can see the reef breaking right there.
Exactly.
It's massive.
To get to grips with this city in the sea, we need to work out the full extent of it. And that can only be done from above.
I think we have to scan this, you know, with the drone. And maybe we can start to really
Oh my
map
God,
out all these
why?
different features.
Okay, so this is where we're at right now.
Like, fuck off.
There are 90 plus structures, all man-made. From here all the way down south. Yeah,
All the way to there?
Yes.
Such a huge area.
It is huge.
Can't see anything. It's all mangrove. Are the mangroves here 800 years ago?
No, I doubt it. It's been abandoned for a long time, so mangroves was
It
cool.
would have been easier to map it then than it is now.
Well, that's why we have LiDAR, right?
Yeah,
We
yeah,
can delete
sure.
the mangroves.
Take it off.
My drone team began the first of more than 40 planned flights. We're scanning this whole area, almost half a square mile, twice the size of the Vatican City. We want to strip back the jungle canopy and reveal the rest of this city. I'm going back to explore the gigantic building that Gus showed me, to find out more about the people who built this place.
Why is there so little known about the people that built this incredible monument?
The reason there's so little known is because there's not a written
Fuck, man.
system to express ideas. It's through oral tradition, which are
Stories.
exactly, those are stories handed down generation to generation. And no person can tell the entire story because there's the belief that if they tell the whole story that they will die. They're no longer useful.
Wow, so wacky start.
How was this place built? I can't imagine how human effort could actually carry these stones all the way up to the top of this building.
It's really not clear to us how it was done, the physics part of it. One legend talks about magic being used to lift the rocks and bring them over here so they would fly.
Magic flew these rocks here.
That's right.
This whole expedition is something else. I'm a scientist, a technologist. I deal in facts. Finding out how they actually built this, it's going to be a challenge. But deeper into the ritual complex, we spot something familiar.
Here we have a Sakau pouting stone. Remember from the Sakau ceremony with the Nanmarki? You can tell it because of the circular wear pattern.
So you're telling me that people used to sit around this stone and pound Sakau right at the entrance to this complex? This is like a gateway
I just want
sort
to
of
see
ceremony.
stuff.
Like a rite of passage.
No,
in
he's not.
how you get to know people.
And this is the same thing that's been going on for centuries.
Yeah, at least centuries, if not 1,000 years.
At the very center, the true purpose of this stone monument is revealed.
This tomb housed the bones of the Salur, the leader at the time for the whole island.
Where were they found? Do you know?
Some of them were inside of the walls, between the rocks.
It wasn't a single body found here, but the partial remains of many people, perhaps spanning generations.
What do you know about the settlers?
The stories tell us that the Salurs had a bit of a bad reputation, and they didn't exactly treat everyone so well.
And this is literally the heart of the whole complex.
That's right.
Terrible.
It sits within a huge tomb district at this end of Namadol, a Valley of the Kings on water.
You know, it's very different than the stone heads
I
of
hate
each
this game.
island. But just like there, this place, right here, was built to honor the spirits of the dead. Spirits that the locals believe still reside here.
The tombs we can see are only a fragment of Namadol. Our LiDAR scans should reveal a whole lot more. Hidden, somewhere under half a square mile of tropical jungle, lies
Like
the
that,
ancient city
but I got shot
of
there.
Namadol.
See? I tried the hating king vibe,
To create a blueprint of
but
the
I'm
city.
terrible at it. I think I left too
Uncover the
early,
structures
maybe even
and
too.
help us understand why the Salur
I
King
think I'm just gonna stick to my right strafe, the goose right strafe, honestly.
Hacking through the jungle, taking this massive drone.
That's what I was
launching
thinking,
from
that
every
it
point
might
they
be
could
too.
in a methodical
My
way.
timing is all wrong. I think I
It's gonna
gotta
take
wait
some
half
time
a
for the
second
processing
more.
to finish so that we can remove the trees. Like we've got the first scans in, let's pull them in.
Oh, wow.
It's pretty awesome, right? Even before we remove the trees, you get a sense of this network of geometric shapes that define the human structures, right? You can already see faintly here, 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 and then here's the main site that you took me to earlier. So you can already start to piece together this whole city, or what was once there.
It's a glimpse into an ancient city of tombs and temples.
Heck, see, what is this? Look how straight those lines are. You see that? Look at that. They're perfectly uniform.
It's such a regular shape that can't be natural.
That's incredible. I want to check them out.
The mangrove is really dense. So, I mean, there's no way for us to walk in there, you know, it's impossible. Unless you go by a boat.
What? Why?
We're headed back to Namadol now. This time by sea. This is how they would have
I think it's
approached
some
here
shit.
hundreds of years ago.
I followed my GPS to the spot that we identified on the LiDAR scans.
Look at those. Can we get in right there? Wow! These are unreal! These are huge rocks. It's bigger than anything else I've seen here.
That was a pretty good attempt. I mean, pretty fucking slow.
I just can't wrap my head around how they would have got them here, then lifted them one
That's
upon
really
another.
slow.
It's just insane. You know, each one of these boulders must weigh the amount
too
of
slow.
a couple of buses at least. Now, this is something beyond imagination. So weird.
The line of rocks takes me deeper into the mangroves.
What the fuck?
It's enormous. And it goes on forever.
The man-made structure captured by the LiDAR is a seawall. Built on coral reef, it stretches for 1.25 miles.
It's almost like a giant fortress, more than a city.
We can now define the boundaries of the city on 3 sides.
Like what?
Entering through a
I
break
have
in
no
the
idea who
wall,
shot me there.
there are hints of more ancient basalt buildings lining the main channel.
It's like a master mason designed the whole thing. But they didn't use mortar. They just placed everything in a perfect balance. Still intact 800 years or so after the construction. It's getting very narrow here. We're looking for our passageway, but the mangroves have just grown everywhere. Is it okay to enter this area?
It's too risky for you to get off.
Why is that risky?
In the afternoon time, there are spirits around these islands guarding these places. You don't want to get sick.
You know, in respect for the local traditions, I think we're gonna keep going.
This is where old school exploration ends. And tomorrow, my technology takes over. By stripping these trees away with
Oh
our
my
LiDAR,
god, man.
we'll
What?
see what this wall is protecting. We've discovered hints of what Namadol looks like. But the full extent of this mysterious city has been shrouded for centuries in island legend and mangrove forest. Technology can change that. The LiDAR scans are complete.
The hope here is that you're gonna see Namadol as it was originally, before all these trees took over. We're getting a view of the entire site, because you can't see it unless you do something like this. This is the LiDAR before the trees have been removed. You ready for this?
Yes.
Look at that. See?
Oh wow.
Oh, it's shitty. I don't like that. I don't like the
That's
back
another
up and
structure
go
for
forward.
sure.
I don't like it.
You think the structure is that
I
you've never
don't
seen
like
before?
it.
Yes, definitely. Just from this picture, about 10, because you know it's really inaccessible.
So with this, we're able to go where you can't go.
Yes.
This is incredible. Do you know, are there stories of this place?
Of course, each structure has a function. This one is the residential area for the outdoors, so this is where they live.
You can realize that the entire area is protected by this
Come on,
seawall.
man.
What were they defending themselves against?
Not only, I guess, natural elements, but probably people. Up to 2,000 people live here, but these were the rulers.
You can imagine how impressive this would have been. Just the scale, it's amazing. This was happening some 800 years ago,
Exactly.
on this island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
We can now digitally rebuild what Namadol may have looked like in all of its glory.
Oh please, this is so fast. It's really fast.
A colossal seawall protects over 90 man-made islands, organized into a
Fuck it
burial
up.
district and a residential zone, with temples and monuments signifying the power of the oppressive Sadalur rulers who lived here.
So we have a 3D digital model of the height of all of these different features. And from that, we can get a precise measurement based on this actual data of how much volume of material this place took to build.
We begin with the single largest ruin in the city, the ceremonial tomb site I visited.
We've just looked at the main exterior wall as an initial calculation. What I've done here is just take a simple section, and from this we're looking at over 14,000 tons of basalt. That's for just the outside walls, not even the whole structure, and the tombs and stuff inside.
14,000 tons.
It's crazy.
I know, right?
Based on the LiDAR data, the amount of rock used to build the entire city is nearly 700,000 tons.
What the
It's
fuck,
ancient
man?
construction on an unimaginable scale. But where did those thousands of rocks come from? For centuries, it's been explained by magic. On the far side of the island is a basalt deposit that may hold the answer.
Is that it?
That's it. That's the baby.
It's a quarry like no other.
It just pokes straight out of the trees.
This is a quarry in the sky.
I think we could fly the drone right out of here and do a big pass around it. Ready?
I want to get a close look at this extraordinary volcanic mine. Incredibly, it looks as if it's been mined from the top. There must be a
Come
way
on, dude.
that these ancient islanders climbed up and got the stones down.
I don't think we can make it all the way to the top. But there's a spot right in the middle of the mountain that we may be able to access.
This way, maybe this way.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
It's a 400-foot scramble that starts steep and quickly becomes almost vertical.
Be careful, Albert.
Some rocks here. Slippery.
This is where they got the rocks from.
Yep.
Pretty intense quarry.
This is the real deal, bro. We're almost
My
there.
god, I think we want to load the vape.
50 feet from the summit, we reach what appears to be the main quarry site.
These are unreal. They look exactly like the ones in Amadol. The same hexagonal shape.
Yep.
This is like the stone log cabin hardware store for the island. They didn't have dynamite or anything like that back then. How would they actually break these off?
One of the theories is that you burn wood and you pour water in, it will crack.
Oh, it expands. So they were like almost like material scientists back then.
Yes, engineers.
How much does one of these weigh?
The typical ones they use in Amador is between 5 to 10 tons. But there are boulders that can weigh up to 50 tons.
How far is Namadol from here?
10 miles across the land straight.
10 miles that way?
Yes.
Just doesn't make any
What
sense.
the fuck is this?
Let's go a little
Come
further. I'm gonna
on,
try to see if I
dude.
can get up there and get a view.
Okay, good luck.
You're not coming?
I'm not coming.
I'll be right back.
Be careful now.
People came all the way over here to the north side of the island, somehow climbed this mountain, broke off these massive stone pillars, and then transported them across the island. Just like on Easter Island, over 6,000 miles away, people here moved mountains of volcanic rock to build extraordinary monuments that they believed could connect them to the spirits.
This is perfect. You can see everything. The whole area. Maybe I can start to see exactly what route they might have taken with these rocks. No, I'm gonna look on the satellite images. From here, okay, so I think right here, on top of this mountain. They had to get the rocks all the way over to here, to Namadol. I couldn't imagine carrying a 5 or 10 ton boulder over that mountain behind me. Doesn't seem possible at all.
Let's go.
Okay.
My view from the summit suggests an alternative route. A trail of mangroves leads straight into the ocean. And we know where there's mangroves, there's water.
The way that would be most logical is they might have broken these boulders off, thrown them down to the bottom of this quarry, and then somehow used the mangroves and the channels to get them out. If they could float them out to sea, maybe they would move them across the inside of that reef where the waves aren't so bad. And then it's a decision. Do you go north, all the way around the island,
Just give me
that
the
way, or do you
ammo.
go south? I guess depends on the winds, the tides, and the distance. And actually, you know, honestly, like, super sophisticated in terms of whatever engineering they had to come up with to make that possible.
At the moment, it's a theory. But there are intriguing legends that tell of a stone city of the dead beneath the waves. It's en route from here to Namadol, and it could provide evidence of how the city was really built.
That's really shit.
We're headed to a site that has been described as a underwater city of the dead or of the gods, still inhabited today with spirits. You know, most locals, they won't even come here to fish because it's taboo. You know, we're wading into uncharted waters in some ways.
We're searching an area just east of Namadol, where the shallow reef drops away into the deep water.
You can start to see the outer walls in front of us. Off the starboard
Come
a little
on,
bit,
man.
1 o'clock.
I hate this fucking game.
Our ladder can't penetrate water. So we're using downscan sonar, which can detect what's on the seafloor to a depth of up to 300 feet.
Here, as we're motoring along, making a grid pattern around the entrance of Namadol, the sonar is sending a ping straight down. It'll hit something and then return back like a reflection. Basically, these little blobs, just a school of fish right here.
I'm just looking for anything that might look
What
man-made.
is
Something
this?
that's maybe geometric in nature.
After about 30 minutes of scanning,
Look at that.
Look at that. That's beautiful.
A big spike. We're right on top of it now. You got C4, 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 and then all of a sudden, boom, this spike in elevation
Fucking
right
weird,
here,
man.
right underneath us. Whether it's man-made or not, that's why we're diving on it. Let's mark this point right here.
I don't have so much ammo
Okay, we'll
left.
drop in close to the entrance to Namadol and then swim out looking for the structure.
26, that's really shit.
Dive foot. Is that thing mitorized?
Should be, right? That's the next one. That's the upgrade.
Yeah.
3 years ago, I was sitting in a hospital bed wondering if I'd ever walk again. Now, I'm about to don a scuba diving kit and drop into an ocean. We're gonna look for a lost city.
It's just barren down here. There's not a lot of fish. Oh, it's murky.
So if they see basalt rock down there, I mean, that's evidence that this place was man-made or man-built. Basalt rocks are volcanic rocks. They're not coral reefs. It's out of place if we find it here. Somebody brought it here.
We start our search grid close to the outer wall of Namadol.
Okay, man.
That's Namadol right there. You can see the seawall.
Further from the wall, I spot something familiar.
Look, the same hexagonal stones right here. Incredible.
These basalt columns don't look like they're part of the construction. They're random. Like they might have ended up here accidentally. We move away from the reef shelf to the deeper water, our key search area.
Check this out. This must be what we saw in the sonar. Oh man, it's gotta be about 20 feet tall. They're kind of one after the other here. Just pumping up out of the seafloor in this very vertical direction. I really can't be sure this is natural or something man-made. Either way, it's spooky looking.
You know, it's pretty incredible down there. I did see piles of basalt rock closer to Namadol, and along the side of the wall are these huge pillars that just rise out of the depths, like shadows of giants through this murky water.
Oh my God, man.
But it's, to me, inconclusive. You know, it could be naturally forming reef or coral heads, or it could be basalt encrusted with coral. It's hard to say.
Whatever it is, it's weird.
Very, very strange down there. Very strange.
That's a huge column there. That's got to be at least 30 feet tall.
Have you seen other coral pillars like this before?
This is the only place that I've seen pillars like that. I've never seen coral grow in a vertical column like that unless there's something for it to grow onto.
The strange vertical pillars remain a mystery, but are the likely source of the underwater city myth. The hexagonal columns lying on the seafloor may support the theory that the building blocks of Namadol were brought here by sea. If the architects of Namadol could sail giant rocks around the island, just how far could their kingdom have reached? We think that the giant basalt blocks of Namadol were transported by sea. I'm hunting for evidence that the islanders may have sailed further afield. 20 miles from here is a string of tiny islands called Ant Atoll.
I found only one report of this whole place. It was written from before the time I was born. And it describes something that I've got to check out that's just beyond the reef.
This report claims that somewhere on these islands are traces of an ancient civilization. The head of the family who now protects Ant Atoll is Willie Hawley. He has the traditional title of Rosa.
Welcome to Ant.
Thank you. And your family's been on this island for a long time.
Over 100 years. That's what our clan is, the Stingray.
These are awesome. Oh, I need a tattoo.
This area of the island has been abandoned for decades. But as a boy, Rosa remembers seeing unusual stones here.
I don't know how you can find anything with all this undergrowth.
You're starting to see the basalt rocks here. Yeah. That is not common for an atoll like this.
These are the same basalt rocks that I saw at Namadol. There's no quarry of basalt
sitting out here somewhere in this atoll, is there?
There is none.
This isn't the only intriguing remnant here of an ancient civilization.
All right, we're at it.
You found it?
Yeah. If you look, they're flat rocks, overgrown with trees and stuff. But if you brush it off and you take a look at it, it's a cow stone.
Oh, I saw one just like this right at the entrance of Namadol. And the first thing I did was sit with the Nam Marquis to a Sakau ceremony, where stones were pounding just like this to make this a cow. You can see, this is so deep. This must have been hundreds of Sakau ceremonies.
Oh, yeah.
Thousands, maybe.
Yep.
Where did these stones come from?
I would say Pompeii.
So somehow the technology that they had in understanding the sea allowed them to bring huge boulders across waves and reefs and miles of ocean just to get here. Is it possible that these were the same people that built Namadol?
Has to be. I can't see any other reason why this would actually be here, unless there was a link between here and there. Here's another one, right here, bigger one. I think there probably would have been some type of a settlement here.
Wow, how big do you think this is?
That's the mystery.
Clearing this site by hand could take weeks. Our LiDAR scanner will digitally strip away some of the vegetation. Just like our scan at Namadol, if there's anything lurking beneath the undergrowth, this will find it.
The guys have processed all the data that I got from the scan out on Ant Atoll. And here it is. So I zoom in here. And this is the track that I walked. But I can actually kind of move down through the layers and clear away the trees a little bit. You can actually see this really incredible blueprint of this site. That darker area right there. These are Sakau stones. Those are the pounding stones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In a circle, all around this one area. You can imagine how big of a ceremonial place this must have been, because I've only seen 1 or 2 Sakau stones next to each other. This is 6, right here.
20 miles away from Namadol, Ant Atoll was home to a huge ritual site, perhaps built by the very same people. It's evidence that Namadol had influence that stretched across the waves.
What's really incredible about this is that it's on a tiny speck of sand beyond the barrier reef, which means that what happened here happened elsewhere as well.
There are 25,000 other islands across the Pacific. Trade and culture traveled from island to island. But just how far did this ocean network reach? Namadol's architects were highly skilled seafarers, capable of moving rocks miles across the ocean. But could they have been part of a much bigger trans-Pacific movement? Anthropologist Ashley Meredith has uncovered some evidence that might help answer this question.
Ready?
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
It's quite a large field, eh?
It's amazing.
The outcrop that we're exploring is actually a gallery filled with ancient rock art.
It's creepy. Looks almost like a ghost. Look at that, there's a sword down there. How long ago were these carved?
This could be 1,000 to 2,000 years ago.
Okay, 2,000 years ago, that's the time when the story of Christ was happening. That's the time when the first emperor of China was building the terracotta army. And here, in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, somebody actually carved this into this stone and contemplated their reality.
This rock art shows that Pompeii was an important cultural site, even before the settlers arrived.
Ready? This is my favorite.
Whoa. Wow. How did you find this?
Through oral history. There are stories here that talk about foreigners making these.
Foreigners?
Mm-hmm. Where these people came from, we can't be sure.
You see these anywhere else?
Similar in New Caledonia.
Wait. How far away is New Caledonia?
New Caledonia is about 2,000 miles from here.
2,000 miles?
Yep.
That's like, that's almost the distance between New York and LA.
Yes.
If I take images from a bunch of different angles, then I can use photogrammetry where you can add up the overlapping images and it creates a 3D model of the entire
That's
surface.
really cool.
Using the digital model, I can make the faint eroded carvings far more visible. Check this out. Isn't that
Oh my
awesome?
gosh.
I'm actually moving the virtual light across these features and they can pop out a little more. See?
Yep, that was a good one.
Right there?
Slowly. There.
Right there?
Yes, that's really cool. You can see more of the detail.
Let me just screen grab this.
All right.
So now I can pull the same thing up over here. Okay. This is the image from New Caledonia?
That's right.
Okay, so this is from here.
They have a lot in common.
Let's see, maybe I can actually do something even crazier. I can change the opacity. I can move it on top of the other image. Look at that.
Whoa, they're really similar.
That's awesome, right?
Yeah.
It's almost a perfect print, one of the other. I'm staring at these two images, and to me, it's just too similar to be a coincidence. How could something nearly identical pop up 2,000 miles away, but in a time when sailing across those distances must have been incredibly difficult? There's no GPS, it's just old school navigation.
Whether or not these two symbols were created by the same Pacific people, it's clear evidence that the ocean didn't isolate these cities and these cultures. It connected them. The settlers ruled for 400 years until they were overthrown. And within those centuries, their seafaring skills took them across the Pacific. Who knows? Maybe even as far as that other great civilization on Easter Island, over 6,000 miles away. Both left their mark set in stone. This lost city, built on water, is more grand and complex than I ever imagined. A seat of power for the ruling elite, part of a great network of people who traveled north, south, east, and west across the vast Pacific Ocean.
This place that came from a meeting of peoples who sailed across the seas with skill and bravery beyond comprehension. And with them, they carried ideas, creating an ocean continent in a way, leaving traces of the human spirit in these massive, mysterious stone monuments.
The lost city of Namadol. It's more than an archaeological wonder. It's a monument to human possibility.
This channel is part of the History Hit Network.
Camel, get out.
Woo!
Oh no, we're on this corner again.
This immortal civilization was thousands of years in the making, so to pull it all together is a daunting task. But bear with me.
I don't know why I can't do her voice. Can't sing.
Anunnaki gods from another planet visited Earth 445,000 years ago in pursuit of gold. They landed with a splash in one of Earth's oceans and built Eridu, home in the far away. A full-fledged Mission Earth eventually emerged from the virtual community, complete with a mission control center, a spaceport, mining operations, and even a way station on Mars. The astronauts used genetic engineering to create primitive workers, Homo sapiens, since they were short on human resources. A new beginning was necessary after the cataclysmic deluge engulfed the planet. The astronauts took on the role of gods, giving humanity civilization and the ability to worship. Then, roughly 4,000 years ago, a nuclear catastrophe undid everything that had been accomplished. This was caused by visitors to Earth who were engaged in conflicts and wars. Ryan Moorhen drew information from the now famous Moorhen Collection Private Museum in Liechtenstein. It was once curated by his grandfather George Moorhen for the Rothschilds' curated artifacts comprising of the Bible, clay tablets, ancient mythologies, and archaeological finds about what had happened on Earth, particularly the events that had occurred since the beginning of human history. But what had occurred on the astronauts' home planet Nibiru before the events on Earth? What had led to space travel, the demand for gold, and the creation of man? What feelings, conflicts, convictions, and morals, or lack thereof, led the main characters in the heavenly and space sagas? What were the interactions between Nibiru and Earth that were tense? What conflicts erupted between the young and old, between those born on Earth and those who had travelled from Nibiru? And to what extent was what transpired predetermined by destiny? A destiny whose account of the past contains the secret to the future. Would it not be fortunate if one of the main characters, an eyewitness who could tell the difference between fate and destiny, recorded for posterity the how, where, when, and why of it all? Possibly the first and last.
You follow the progress of that civilization over 3,000 years, and it ends up they're still using the same tools that they started with. That doesn't make sense.
A priori, on pourrait dire que ça a été fait à la main, mais la précision est telle que ça nous pose de sérieux problèmes.
On a une brillance équivalente à ce que l'on obtient aujourd'hui avec les techniques modernes. Il y a des engrenages à l'intérieur qui sont d'une technicité, d'une ingéniosité qui est juste extraordinaire.
Agriculture appears suddenly. Where did they learn the skills?
L'humanité à cette époque-là ne savait même pas faire un vase en poterie.
Leur système de pensée est hautement plus...
The Americas. Two vast continents coated with the ruins of ages gone by. From the sweltering marshes of the Mississippi, across the plain,
Conventional archaeologists who dismiss the possibility of highly advanced civilizations in the remote past insist that they were built solely with the use of primitive tools and brute force. Some of the structures, or parts of them, could have been built in this way. However, a number of engineers have stated that some features would be difficult, if not impossible, to duplicate today, even using the most advanced technology. The sheer weight and size of some of the stone blocks have prompted several researchers to wonder whether the ancient builders had mastered some form of levitation technology. Behind each structure you're about to see, from Japan to Saudi Arabia, there's a lot of mystery and intrigue that has puzzled even the best scientists. Asuka is a village nestled among the hills of the Nara prefecture of Kansai, Japan. The area is known for its many Buddhist temples, shrines, and statuary, but there are unusually shaped granite stones and stone-carved figures that still defy explanation. Apart from the Shimuzen Seki, a garden fixture carved to suggest Mount Sumeru of Buddhist mythology, or the male-female stone carving which likewise was designed as a fountain, the purposes originally associated with the other worked stones, bearing such names as Masuda no Iwafune, Sakafune Ishi, Kame Ishi, Miroku Ishi, Nimen Seki, etc., is unknown and does not fit with Buddhist-style sculpture or construction. They have been, for the most part, ignored by academics. Let's focus on the largest of those monuments. It's known as Masuda no Iwafune, which is said to mean Rock Ship of Masuda. The monument is 11 meters long, 8 meters wide, and 4.7 meters high, and weighs approximately 1,000 tons, carved from a single piece of granite. The upper surface is flat with a shallow trough and 2 square holes. At the base of the stone, there are protruding notches that are believed to be related to the process used by the builders to flatten the sides of the rock. It sits atop the steep incline of a hill near Okadera Station. Some believe the shape and contour of the rock is very compelling evidence for past alien encounters. In fact, most ancient astronaut researchers in the area believe Masuda no Afune is a replica of a godlike vehicle. Other researchers have speculated that it could be a piece of evidence that shows signs of an advanced technology in the past because of the skill involved in making it. Obviously, it's an incredibly advanced construction for its time. Another remarkable fact is that the granite rock from which the megaliths were created is incredibly hard. Even with modern equipment, it's very difficult to even apply a scratch to the surface. Locals believe in the magical powers of megaliths and try to avoid them, and many more will not touch the stones. Today, these stones still represent one of the greatest archaeological puzzles of Japan, because no archaeologist can state with certainty how old the Masuda no Wafune really is, or what its original function might have been. There are many more of these enigmatic features of ancient Japan that are, as of now, lost in the pages of history. Seiwite is an archaeological site 47 kilometers east of the city of Abancay, about 3 hours away from the city of Cusco, in the province of Abancay, in the region of Apurimac in Peru. To some historians, the site is regarded as a center of religious worship for Inca people. But beyond the ruins of the Inca temple are mysterious automobile-sized stones, which have clearly been shaped with an unknown technology. Whoever created the massive stones is another massive mystery. Although it's thought that the place was an Inca sanctuary, archaeologists are not sure the ancient Incans were the constructors. The stone is made of andesite, which is as hard as granite, and the Inca had at best bronze tools or meteorite iron hammers. This is why much doubt has been cast on the origins of the monuments and their archaeological site of Seiwite. This intricate stone block is adorned with more than 200 zoomorphic and geometric figures, which together compose something like a 3D relief. The entire rock itself is even formed in the shape of a feline head. It's said to have been transported to the hill since it's not a natural outcrop. Some carvings represent geographical figures and human constructions, while making use of certain shapes natural to the rock formation. The top of the stone is completely resurfaced with compact designs with many resembling streets, stairways, channels, and buildings. Perhaps the stone carving represents a map of a lost city, or, as some theories suggest, it may be a depiction of the universe itself. Researcher Dr. Arlen Andrews Sr. believes the monolith was used as a scale model to design, develop, test, and document the water flow for public water projects, and to teach ancient engineers and technicians the concepts and practices required. While the precise meaning of this stone remains unsolved, the monolith is part of the material culture of the Incan people, and as such helps archaeologists piece together how and why they lived this way. Understanding the Incan culture from an archaeological perspective helps archaeologists apply this knowledge to similar civilizations and find links between ancient cultures. In any case, however, the Say-White monolith remains an intriguing mystery, and no doubt people will continue to speculate about it from its creators to its function for years to come. Intihuatana stone is a sacred ritual stone for the Incas, which has 4 sides considered as the 4 cardinal points: north, south, east, and west. The most famous Intihuatana stone is located at the archaeological site of Machu Picchu, which is located on top of the sacred mountain. This is a simple wonder reflecting the perfection of ancient technology. This wonderful sculpture, to put it one way, had of course more functions than being a beautiful decorative piece, which it surely is. The stone's name is translated into English as the hitching post of the sun, because the Incas believed that the stone can hold the sun in its place along its annual path in the sky. The sun almost stands at the pillars at midday on March 21st and September 21st, when the equinoxes occur. Daytime equals nighttime. Then no shadow is cast at all. The monolithic structure, carved in gray granite, up to 2 meters high and 2 meters in diameter. Its base does not have a defined shape, but at the top stands out an upright stone column. In addition, it features a granite block resembling a bench. However, who actually made this is again open to question. Brienne Forster states, "The lack of tool marks on the surfaces may indicate that the work done to make these enigmas was long before Inca times, possibly by a culture called the Pear House or Viracochas. Viracocha is the name or title in the Quechua language of the Inca creator god at the time of the Spanish conquest of Peru in the 16th century. According to Inca beliefs, Viracocha made earth and sky, then fashioned from stone a race of giants. Displeased with them, he turned some giants back into stone and destroyed the rest in a flood. It's often said that the Intihuatana stone serves as a portal to another world. These stones were extremely sacred to the Incas. Peruvian shamans claimed, and still claim, that if a sensitive person touches their forehead to the stone, it would open their vision to the spirit world. During their conquest, the Spaniards specifically sought out and destroyed many Intihuatana stones. The Incans believed that when an Intihuatana stone was broken, the deities pertaining to that sacred spot would die. Many mysteries are written around the stone. They tie the sun because if the sun goes out, his life will be finished, and the sun brings to life all creatures, is the light of the life. Back to Japan now. 100 kilometers west of Asuka Park, near Takasago, there is mysterious object standing beside the rock massif. Ishi no Hoden is a monolith, semi-finished product. In other words, a block that's remained in place since its production and which has clear signs that it has not yet been fully completed. It's estimated to be at least 1,500 years old. The temple is built precisely near the megalith because it's believed holy and people have venerated it since ancient times. The official version is that the rock was meant to be a tomb, but there's no scientific information as to who built it nor what its true purpose is. The mysterious cube monument is dug out of the surrounding rock, similar to the rock churches in Ethiopia. The makers skillfully position the stone to appear as if it's actually hovering above the pool of water it stands in, with the overall structure being situated in an old quarry. It's known as one of the greatest enigmas of Japan's ancient history, and is now worshipped as the god of a Shiko Jinja Shinto shrine. Although the structure of the top is concealed by pine trees, it's thought that there may be two holes like Masada no Iwafune and Kengo Shizuka Kofan. Some say that it's supposed to show a sky ship with a long-gone people coming down from heaven. The stone is 5.6 meters high, 6.5 meters wide, and 7.5 meters deep, with a weight of 500 tons. This makes the stone larger than any of the stones used in the Great Pyramid of Giza, the largest of which was 80 tons, while the typical large base stones of that pyramid were 6 to 10 tons. There are no regular traces or drills or chisels on Ishi no Hoden. This surface character again raises questions about a certain type of mechanical tool that does not spoil, but simply crushes or grinds the material. Even seeing the difference between the surfaces of Masudu Iwafune and Ishi no Hoden, it's quite possible that the same tool was used when machining both objects. The stone monument was built from hyalocastite stone, which is a volcanic rock consisting of glassy large pieces contained in a fine-grained matrix dominated by glassy shards or smaller pieces. Something like this might lead us to speculate on a melting process with high technologies. Because of the enormous size alone, it's safe to assume that it was built by a technologically developed civilization, and with its overwhelming presence and its mystique, it continues to fascinate people even today. There are many strange sights in the Arabian Peninsula that might puzzle even the most well-traveled researcher. One of them is Al Nasla Rock Formation. This rock is split through the middle by a clean and straight crack, which looks almost as if the rock was sliced with a laser. It's located in Tema Oasis, Saudi Arabia. Archaeologists have also discovered cuneiform inscriptions which are possibly dating from the 6th century BCE at the oasis city. They show Al Nasla was a major trade route in antiquity and was once the dwelling place of a Babylonian king, Nabonidus. It's referenced in both Assyrian and biblical sources as a trading post, and is also known for abundant rock art made as much as 4,000 years ago. Just imagine walking around in the desert, exploring the unknown, and you come across a massive standing stone split in half by a perfect line. What would be the first thing that jumps to your mind? The rock was discovered in 1833 by Charles Huver, and it's been at the heart of many theories and controversy since then. There have been numerous speculations to ascertain the reason and the method of the cut. However, the mystery of this megalith is still as shrouded as it was at the time of its discovery. One of the vertical fields is flat, almost like it's been cut by a modern device. Could it have been worked on at some point with some sort of precise ancient tool? Taking a closer look at this stone of Al Nasla, you cannot help but wonder what its true purpose was. Is the split in the rock really a result of the forces of nature, as some experts suggest? Or is it possible that just as there are many other ancient places on Earth, dating back thousands of years, featuring precision cuts, this stone too was crafted by an unknown technology? Uniquely, in each of the lower parts of the Al Nasla stone, it looks like a buffer has formed by rocks that are much smaller or similar to a shock absorber, which prevents it from touching the ground. This has made archaeologists shake their heads in puzzlement, and many continue to try to solve the mystery to this day. Today, this part of the Saudi Arabian desert is still under investigation for archaeological remains. Of course, the last question we should ask is, how long the rocks will remain balanced. Before the advent of Islam, Afghanistan was an important center of Buddhist teaching. To find evidence of this Buddhist past, one has to search extremely hard. The once rich excavation sites have turned to rubble after decades of neglect. One of these remnants and lesser-known curiosities of Afghanistan is the Takht-e-Rostam Monument in Samangan province, between Mazar-e-Sharif and Kunduz in the north. This stupa was named after Rustam III, the Persian ruler of the Bavan dynasty. Unlike others, this stupa has not been mounted above ground, but it's been carved into the ground in a style that, again, resembles the monolithic churches of Ethiopia. The dome-shaped structure of the highly polished limestone, 8 meters high and 28 meters across, is encircled by a 2-meter wide passageway at its foot, which was used by pilgrims for circumambulation. Historicity of the town is dated to the Kushan dynasty reign during the 4th and 5th centuries. It represents the earliest link to the evolution of Buddhist architecture in Afghanistan. The monastery of the major Buddhist tradition, the Theravada Buddhism, has 5 chambers. 2 are sanctuaries and 1 is a domed ceiling with an intricate lotus leaf beautification. There are several caves at the base of the stupa. Above one of the caves, there's a square building with 2 conference halls. One is 22 meters square and the other is circular. In one of these caves, archaeological excavations have revealed a cache of Ghaznavid coins. One must ask, how could Buddhists have built this strange and mysterious building? But if you do, you probably won't find an answer. There are very few records of how this place was constructed or how long it took to make. Historians have proposed 2 possible reasons why the stupa has been carved in the ground instead of being built above the ground. One explanation is that it could have been done for the purpose of camouflage to protect the monastery from invaders.
Yo.
Another much more
Are you serious? I have that command as a command?
Been done to escape the excessive hot and cold climate extremes of Afghanistan. Some ancient astronaut researchers suggest that it can have connection to mysterious flying ships that visited Earth 6,000 years ago, according to ancient Vedic texts. They say stupas design-wise are much like flying ships, vimanas seen around the world. Is it possible that an ancient flying machine, reportedly discovered in a cave in Afghanistan in 2012, could be one of these ancient flying vehicles?
Oh, Job, you gotta spam it.
Quirigua is a remarkable place.
Do it twice.
It's located in the southeastern border of the Maya lowlands in Guatemala. What makes this place remarkable is the stelae and zoomorphs discovered by explorers John Lloyd Stevens and Frederick Catherwood, who were the first to record and document the site in 1840. These intricate works of stone are the latest and best preserved of the Mayan world. Originally, Quirigua was under the rule of the dynasty of the city of Copan, now Honduras.
Yeah, that should work.
But in 738 AD, the Quirigua dynasty managed to become independent and even subjugate the Copan dynasty. And that's when the city reached its peak.
I don't know, man.
Most of the monumental constructions and the Acropolis, as well as the stelae, were erected during the following 60 years of the new Quirigua dynasty, a dynasty that dominated the region of the Copan River and the Matagua River. These monoliths were carved out of sandstone by Mayan stonemasons who had no access to metal tools, which is an amazing feat. It's even more so when one considers the intricate designs that cover them. Zoomorph P is the largest of the Zoomorpho at Quirigua, and according to some, it's the greatest Mesoamerican monument ever discovered. Weighing over 20 tons, it stands 2 meters tall, measures 3.5 meters wide, and 3 meters long. It provides a surface area of about 402 meters, or 1,314 feet. And every square centimeter is engraved with information. You'll see Zoomorph P marries 2 key principles. Firstly, the king rests in the jaws of a mythical beast. Secondly, he holds the mannequin scepter and shield, which is shown on many of the stelae. One interpretation of this scene is that it's meant to be a reenactment of the creation of man. Explorer Maudsley nicknamed it the Great Turtle. It weighs around 20 tons. The design of this zoomorph is incredibly intricate, and the whole monument is covered with skillfully executed sculpture. It's located in the Ball Court Plaza, just south of the Ball Court. Zoomorph P is accompanied by an altar depicting an unidentified deity leaping from a split in the earth. A hieroglyph text on the zoomorph describes the founding of Quirigua under the supervision of the King of Copan. Traces of red pigment have been found on this monument, suggesting that it was originally painted red. John Lloyd Stevens and Frederick Catherwood's books on Quirigua makes for some fascinating reading. After they discovered the place, they were followed by Alfred Maudsley in the 1880s.
I'm gonna somehow integrate
who documented the site through his
your
excellent photographic methods.
I haven't figured it out yet, but I'm gonna find a way to integrate the user's
excavation and consolidation
ability
continued in the
to write a
1970s.
256 character chat GPT prompt.
Puma Punku is part of a wider
There's
temple
gotta be a
complex
way.
found in the ancient city of Tiahuanacu in western Bolivia.
Moonraker, do you know of a
Both are
command
viewed
that
as the most
where you
mysterious
can add
archaeological sites in
a
all of
command,
South America.
where a mod can add a command,
Situated 3,800 meters above
like
sea level,
command add
Tiahuanacu
or something,
predates the ancient Inca civilization
and then
of
you write
pre-Columbian South America.
the command script.
There's no written record of the ancient city
Maybe.
prior to Inca settlement, with the Incas believing to be a holy site where their deity of creation, Viracocha, started life. With the various ethnicities of human being created here before moving out into the wider world. Puma Punku,
That would be
the
the
door
only
of
way.
the Puma, is one of many examples of the incredible masonry work found throughout
Wait,
Tiahuanacu.
who's shooting me?
It and many other structures were created
Why?
with startling precision that predates the technology and methods available at the time. With doorways, stone blocks, smoothly drilled holes, an irrigation system, and other complex examples of stonework found throughout the site.
I think we got to
The blocks
tweak.
used to create perfectly
Use
interlocked
can I
and
use as
looked like
editors?
they were manufactured using modern machinery. A huge stone terrace and walls would feature massive
Yeah.
blocks that interlock with each other with the finest precision. They form load-bearing joints.
That's a
and no mortar was
one. I don't
used
know
when
if I
building
want
the
to do
site.
that.
The precision
And
needed to
two,
make these cuts into
I was
huge stone
hoping to do it
blocks
in
has
chat.
given
You know what I
birth to
mean?
many theories about the origins of
I was thinking the same
Punku
thing. That
and
is how you do
Tiahuanacu.
it, but
Many theorize that an advanced ancient
I don't think I want to
civilization
give people
predating
because
the Incas
all
were
my
responsible
fucking other shit's on
and
there.
had
On
technologies
Stream Elements, you know
well
what I mean?
beyond a civilization for a much later
Like you
period.
can't.
We know Incas
Maybe
didn't have
for
the
commands,
capabilities to
maybe.
pull off such feats of engineering. How could a civilization
Yeah,
that
for
predates
commands, I
them
guess.
by hundreds of years do so? According to engineers, one of the largest
Okay, I'll
single
look in the
stones
settings.
ever to be
Probably
moved and put
allow
into building
mods to
anywhere
add
on
new
Earth,
commands or something.
about 400 tons, was transported to Tiahuanaco from a quarry over 200 miles away. This feat is more incredible when one realizes the route of transport was through a mountain range up to 15,000 feet. They've amazed countless travelers, such as the Spanish chronicler Pedro Cieza de Leon, who observed that some of these stones are very worn and washed, and there are others so large that one wonders how human hands could have brought them to where they now stand.
Oh, come on, man.
When
Why
one
would that
considers the
even
work,
happen?
I cannot understand or fathom what kind of instruments or tools were used to work them.
Are you serious?
For it's evident that before these huge stones were
Bro.
dressed and brought to perfection, they must
Then
have been
you
much
could
larger to have been
do
left
the
as
chat
we see them.
GPT.
I would say that I consider this
know what I mean?
the oldest antiquity in all of Peru.
You can have chat GTP
Other stones at Puma Punku
just fucking
contain
trolling my
inexplicable
chat.
grooves and niches. Some researchers have speculated
Oh my
they
god,
may
that'd
have
be
used metal
ridiculous. Like a
clamps.
chat
To
GPT
create these
bot.
clamps, the construction workers would have had to deploy a portable furnace.
It probably
to pour
already
the
exists. I'm
liquid
probably just trying to
metal into
recreate the
grooves.
wheel. I think I need
Any
a chat
delay could
GPT
solidify
bot.
the metal, beating the purpose of melting it.
That's what I need.
Therefore, evidently, the constructors of Puma Punku Not only were
It would be
well
really
versed
troll.
with the science of metal
It'd be
making,
turbo
but
troll.
also they were advanced enough that they could create a portable furnace device to achieve the technique of clamping. Here we see stone pillars with meticulously carved grooves in them. The precision and accuracy with which these grooves have been created is incredible given the time. What's more remarkable is that they show signs of tooling and machining. It's
I
been
would use it.
speculated that only diamond-tipped tools could have cut through the unforgiving diorite. However, that subject also has much debate. How such massive stone blocks were carried to the site is a topic of debate, and whilst giant seems to be a
You even ask
wilder
it to
theory,
tell funny jokes,
it's certainly one that carries
like
some weight when
ChatGPT
considering
jokes.
how the creators of this place
Can you
managed to
imagine?
move these huge blocks. This would involve carrying stone blocks weighing several dozen tons, many miles, and up a steep mountain.
I could do that. I can make a command for it right now.
Mainstream
Tell a
theory is
random
that a labor
joke.
force from the ancient
Funny
settlers
joke.
of Tiahuanaco
That could
completed
be a
the task,
command.
but what techniques they could have used remains hotly
That'd be
disputed
hilarious.
given the complex route to the site. The largest stone blocks used in
You see what it comes
are
up
around
with.
7.8 meters long, 5 meters wide, and roughly a meter thick, with an average weight estimated
Let's see
to be
what it
131
finds humorous.
The site
right?
is 2 miles above sea level.
What
There's
would be
no
the criteria
evidence of a
for
real and Tiahuanacan culture,
AI to consider
and
something
there are
humorous?
no trees in the area to use as rollers. The feat of moving the stones for 10
Is
miles,
it dad joke
let
man?
alone
Nice.
90,
Is
would
it a
be an
list or is
incredible
it ChatGPT?
Interestingly, the age of the site has also been hotly
Do you know?
debated over the years. After its original
there's a
discovery
big
by
difference.
explorer Arthur Poznanski, the site was dated to around 15,000 BC.
Sounds like it would be something to have a
He
list.
based this finding on the astronomical alignment of the main temple,
Man, I
which
need
acts
way
as a
better
sort of
animal management.
sundial based on the sun's
Oh, it's a
position.
list? No way. Oh, yeah, that's
During
not
his
as...
time there, the sunrise didn't follow
Because
the
then, like,
alignment
is
of
the
temple's
ChatGPT, it's
cornerstone
not
as
the
expected,
joke. It's the interpretation of how it came to that conclusion that's what would be the joke.
17,000 years prior.
You know what I mean?
However, modern radiocarbon dating
Man, I want to
places
make a
it as
command
much
like
more recent
ASAP. I
construction,
don't know.
sometime around AD 600.
I could add it right now.
Although many cite these
But I'm in a
findings
good
as
groove. I'll add it
inaccurate and
in a
unreliable.
few minutes at break.
Tiahuanaco seems to have faced a sudden
It'd be
catastrophic
funny. It'd
end.
just be like, tell
In the
a
layers of rock
random
that date to
funny
the same
joke that
time,
you
now extinct
make
species
up on the
of plants
spot
and
or
animals can
something
be
like
found
that.
mixed in with human skeletal remains.
If you want me to add another
Everything
command, just let
seems
me
to be
know.
jumbled
I'll
together,
add one right
as
now.
if a tidal wave or some other
Just think
event
about it.
caused major changes on the Earth's surface,
Like I have
including
wholesome.
the life that inhabited it. This gives credence to the theory that a
This
global
one's pretty
flood
dumb.
found throughout mythology did occur. Ollantaytambo is a town found 72 kilometers from the city of Cusco, Peru, that has a prominent archaeological site with some incredible megalithic structures. Situated 2,792
They're
meters above
bond,
sea level, it's the starting point of
unbreakable,
the
showing the
historical
power of
Sacred
forgiveness
Valley,
and growth.
a prominent tourist route that leads to Peru's famous Inca
The
archaeological
command
sites,
is like tell a story
including
of
Machu Picchu,
Golden Knight
Aztec,
competitors
Chinchero, and Ollantaytambo
resolving
itself.
their differences.
This ancient marvel of engineering is believed to have been built around 1440 AD by Inca Emperor Pachacuti. However, many researchers believe that
You make
this
a command
ancient site
saying
dates back much
a
further
dad
in
joke in
time than we can
quotations
imagine.
saying
There are many
make
noteworthy
a
structures
brand
in
new
Ollantaytambo,
dad joke
including the
on
Temple
the
Hill,
spot that you would
made
think
from
would be
huge
funny
stone
for
blocks that weigh some 50
the
tons.
reader.
The heaviest are thought to
And
weigh
let's
as
see what
much
AI
as
comes up with,
150 tons.
honestly.
They were placed with such precision using a cut and fit method that no mortar was needed. A common fixture of architecture in Peru. Modern technology can't even lift some of the stones, let alone position them such that a human hair cannot fit through. Clearly, the techniques used to produce these features has been lost to modern science. Yet it's evident of how advanced ancient peoples were. Soft stones could also explain the precision fit. The stones would settle by their own weight and the weight of the ones on top, thereby squeezing into any gaps. The protrusions could
Oh,
be
you're
formed
so
by
close to
making
being stuck
marks
there.
in the support structure that would be necessary to prevent
That's what I gotta do. I gotta
uncontrolled
use
movement
better
of the
animal
material at
management.
the outer face of the wall. Amazingly, The stones used for this megalithic structure are thought to be quarried from a mountaintop quarry about 7 miles from Ollantaytambo. This means that the stones would need to be lowered down a steep portion of the mountain or transported over River Canyon with near vertical rock walls. This method would then require the blocks to be lifted back up another portion of the mountain to the site of the town. Given the technological limitations of the time, a remarkable achievement if true.
It's a crazy
Advocates of such
winter
push and
windstorm
shove
outside.
technique point out that the
It's
remains
fucked.
of a ramp do exist, leading up to the hillside, and that furthermore numerous stones, the so-called tired stones, which never made it to the
I was
top,
looking back at my
can be seen
PVs for
lying at the
GoldenEye,
foot of
and
the
most of them happened in like January,
Unfortunately,
February.
this evidence only explains the stones that did not get up to the ramp.
And I'm like, I
It
am
tells
not
us nothing
surprised.
about the stones which we see at the top of the hill. It's not beyond the realms of possibility
Like, seriously,
that the
every one of my
megalithic
Aztec
structures
PVs
already
was like
existed
January,
in Inca
February,
times, and that the ramp
October,
and tired stones
November, December.
represent the efforts of the Incas to emulate what they
That was
saw.
the inside, yeah. For
How is
real,
it
man.
possible that the massive stone walls display fascinating
No way,
similarities
Canadian summer.
to ancient walls
There's
found
no way you're playing
halfway around the
GoldenEye.
globe in
A
Egypt?
single night in a
Does
Canadian
this mean
summer.
that ancient cultures shared the same building
Ever.
techniques? Does this mean that ancient cultures around the globe had access to some
Maybe
sort
sometimes.
of advanced ancient technology that's been lost since then? The wall
But you know
of
what
the
I mean.
6 monoliths is the main highlight of the Temple Hill area, which is an
Playing Far Cry
unfinished
yesterday.
building
It
made
was so
from
nice.
6
It's
massive
like I was in a
stone
tropical
blocks.
paradise, you know?
It's one of the most iconic and baffling pieces of architecture yet to be discovered. Standing approximately 36 feet wide and 14 feet high, the wall is one of the great mysteries of the
Okay, I'm gonna add
Incas.
that command soon.
It
If you can think of
consists
another command,
6
I'll add it.
massive andesite monoliths,
So we're gonna
which
have
are curiously
come
divided
up with
by small
a
strips,
funny joke,
which seem to serve
come
little
up with a
purpose
dad
other
joke.
than to add a modern
What else?
riveted steel effect to this ancient wall. The rocks are all masterfully crafted to
We
leave
can
not
come up with some
even
crazy
a paper
stuff
thin
like,
crack between them.
what is
We
the
can
meaning of
easily
life
see
or
where
something
they
like
were
that?
carved from the rock face on the other side of the valley. Several questions arise from
What is the
even a
meaning
cursory
of life?
examination, though. The cut marks
How
are
many
perfectly
stars
square.
are there in the universe?
You would think that the stone would be knocked out of the rock face and then squared. That's how
What
modern
is
stone
the
cutters would do it. Not so here.
closest
It almost
distance
looks
to
as if the
the
rock was scraped off the mountain face.
potentially
Secondly, the
most
surface of the
inhabitable
cuts is glassy smooth,
planet or
not
moon
rough the way you'd expect sawn or chiseled
in or
surfaces
outside of
to
our
be.
galaxy?
Also,
Are
why
we
would they
able to
cut the rocks from a
bypass
place
the
that are sometimes up
50,000
to
degrees
130
Celsius
feet above the floor of
plasma
the valley? It would be akin to taking an
wall at
incredibly
the
difficult
outer edge
job
of
and
our
making it 100
solar
times harder
system, the Milky
just
Way?
for the fun of it. There is one interesting theory, and that is levitation.
No, our galaxy is the
Unfortunately,
Milky Way.
science has still not been able to figure out how to levitate large, heavier
Our solar
objects.
system is the
Yet
sun.
history suggests
Sun
the ancient
system.
civilizations might have already cracked this secret in
Outside
their
of our
building of the
galaxy, I
pyramids
guess.
and other megalithic monuments. Did they have some advanced form of sound levitation to move 1,000-ton stones?
Or inside our
A
galaxy,
task
outside
that
of our solar
present-day
system.
builders admit would be difficult, even with the use of modern cranes.
There were no planes. Oh no.
Another interesting find
I
lay on
gotta
the
remove
bottom
that
from
one,
where
man.
these rocks were cut
I
out of.
think I gotta remove that
We
one.
find strange but precise crisscross patterns.
But I agree, man.
The pattern that we see appears to be a
I
trace
agree,
left by
dude.
some kind of machinery
you're
that was
fucking-
left behind at the time
you
these
know.
slabs were being removed. Possibly these marks
You
could
know,
have been
man.
created
You
by some
know.
kind of laser or saw
Holograms?
machine.
Wow.
So yes,
I think it's just video
could be
editing.
one of the most clear pieces of evidence that the ancients
I think
did
it's just
in
honestly
fact
video
use
editing.
some sort of advanced technology at the time they were cutting, removing, and
I
shaping
think they just
these
had
incredible rocks.
all the
There
networks
are
in the
also
back
several
pocket.
unused
I think they
stone
had
blocks
CNN and
scattered around the area that show
NBC and
most of
everything
the
all
Temple Hill
in
Center
their back
was
pocket
incomplete
in
when the
terms
town
of
was
video
abandoned.
footage.
Other blocks look to have been removed
And they just
from
switched
the
the
walls in
footage.
the area
I
too,
guess what they did.
suggesting that a major reconstruction project may have begun at some point. Further afield from the town are several storehouses built for the farmers working along the winding terraces that
I
surround
just switched the
Ollantaytambo.
footage.
There's also a road
Video
that the
editing,
Incas
man.
built
You can
that
do a lot with
connected
video editing.
Ollantaytambo to Machu Picchu and Pisac, which is used today for the many tourists
Holograms,
trekking
that's
through
crazy
Peru's
idea.
most famous Inca sites.
That sounds so
Is this
complex.
evidence of an advanced, now lost worldwide civilization that spread throughout the world and allowed its mystery builders to cut with laser-like precision, intricately carve and transport massive rocks weighing over hundreds of tons in weight? Is this evidence of an ancient alien civilization that came to Earth many thousands of years ago and helped mankind evolve? Or is it simply the ingenuity of mankind? Ancient advanced stonework and extreme machining in ancient Egypt. The purpose in presenting the notion of ancient advanced extreme machining in ancient Egyptian culture is simple. They had such a sophisticated stone technology beyond our own. The evidence presented here will leave you absolutely baffled beyond belief. There are so many numerous examples, we can only hope this scientific process in uncovering the work of the engineering geniuses becomes enhanced. However, Egyptology is no fan of attributing any advanced skills to the ancient master masons. They still sell us this method to achieve advanced results like this. The tides of injustice are slowly turning as global tourism and sophisticated cameras are commonplace now. We have hard evidence of pre-dynastic stone-turning possible lathe work, tubular drilling at advanced speeds, marks left behind by what can only be perceived as use of circular stone saws, mechanical methods of engraving lines in hard stones as far back as the 4th dynasty, ancient machining techniques comparable to today's CNC routing, except done in hard pink granites. The ancient Egypt masons shaped all kinds of stone with intricate mastery. They were adept with the use of a wide variety of manufacturing tools, various building stones, tube drills capable of hard material, straight cutting saws, circular cutting saws, lathes, and smoothing techniques for polishing. It's the marks left in the stone by these multitude of tools which are the reliable source of evidence of advanced extreme machining in the ancient world. There are no surviving examples of the tools utilized. There are no written or pictorial records
tell a funny joke,
which
tell a
mention or
dad
describe
joke.
their use. After all, we barely do this today. Why should they in ancient times? There's serious debate about the nature of the tools and their advanced techniques in the historical framework.
Should be another one.
The marks left in
Seinfeld.
stone are a beacon of
Create a
curiosity
funny
and intrigue to engineers who
scenario
work these materials today.
as what would be found in
couldn't care less
Seinfeld.
how they did anything, unless they feel the need to show some guy pounding a rock
I don't
and
know.
solve the enigmas of all Egyptian building work in an instant. Modern experts are baffled with their machining techniques, and it's these individuals we must listen to if we want to answer conclusively the key questions. What were the cutting tool tips made of? What was their abrasive?
We can even do something that's
How were the tools
it's
manufactured?
relative, like to
What
time.
machinery was used to control the
You know what
cutting
I mean?
surface on the stone? How
Weather,
did
you
they
can
apply
create
the
weather.
tool pressure? Why
Seinfeld
were
we
their
did, yeah, that'd be
tolerance
pretty
standards
funny.
of precision so high?
There's a weather, we can do
Engineers
weather
and
too.
architects are completely puzzled and rigorously debate pointing to monuments and artifacts, though no scientific proof exists for
I
any
don't know,
of
I
their
don't want the
theories
weather one because I
unless
did
the
it
tools are
before I
present.
added it, it wasn't very good.
Look at an
Oh
ocean cruiser.
no.
It doesn't take
Oh,
a sophisticated
no.
debate to know tools, industry, and manufacturing of a high level was used to create it.
Oh no.
Why does Egyptology portray such ignorance on the issue then? Because the revelations bear directly on the developmental history and subsequent chronology of the pre-dynastic Egyptian cultures, followed by the early dynastic period. Ancient housewares discovered by Flinders Petrie show undeniable proof of being turned on a lathe.
Yeah, we should ask.
There are
We
various
should have it ask a
examples
really
in the Cairo
controversial
Museum,
question.
the Petrie
Answer
Museum
a
in UCL
controversial
London,
question.
and various other museums
What
around
would
the
it be?
world.
Like something really
Some of the best
controversial.
examples of stoneware were discovered around the Step Pyramid at Saqqara. Petrie also discovered pieces of interesting stoneware on
We
the
could
Giza
say
Plateau. There are incredible
ChatGPT,
aspects
if
about
India
these
and China
vases, plates,
represent
and bowls that speak
like
of highly
35
advanced engineering techniques. They portray the distinctive tool marks belonging to lathe-manufactured items. This is easily
35 to
visible in the
40%
center of the bowls or
of the
plates,
carbon
where the
emissions
angle of the cut changes
in
rapidly.
Canada, only
The
1%.
stoneware in question is left with a very clean,
Should
narrow,
Canadians
and almost perfectly circular line made, a clear indication of the
become
tip of the cutting
communist
tool.
assholes?
These stoneware masterpieces, comprising of dishes, platters, are some of the finest ever found. And they're right there from the earliest period of ancient Egyptian civilization. They're made from a variety of materials. Seemingly, the choice of material to be cut was irrelevant.
I posted in the
as they
Elite
went from soft
maybe a few months ago.
all the way up the hardness scale to
I did
extremely hard
ChatGPT and I
granite.
asked,
Working with alabaster
in the
is
future when
relatively easy,
artificial
at least
intelligence
compared to
rules the
granite.
world, and
Alabaster can be
what
worked
will
with
they
primitive
do with
abrasives
the
and
humans
tools.
when they when they
The
find out
sophisticated
that they're so
workings in
wasteful
granite
with
are an
resources
entirely
and
different matter, and
space?
indicate a level of skill
And
we're not
AI
aware of today,
responded,
and can only be
artificial
considered
intelligence
advanced
will
technology.
decide to get rid
Flinders
of the
Petrie was quoted on
humans
this issue saying,
to preserve
"The lathe appears
the
to have been as
environment and
familiar an
space.
instrument in the 4th dynasty as it is in the modern workshops. Stonework as
And I
sophisticated as
pasted
these examples
the
are
Terminator,
not found in any
Terminator
later
2 fucking
leaving many to
2000 or
think
whatever.
the skill was lost, or that they were heirlooms from a different
I was like,
epoch or
holy
culture.
shit.
There's also the
We'll
case of
get
delicate
rid of
vases being made
humans.
of very brittle schist, somewhat
It's like,
like
of
a
course
flint.
they will.
And yet they're polished, finished, and turned to flawless thin edges. An incredible feat of engineering and craftsmanship. Many bowls are turned and hollowed out with thin necks, and have a symmetrical wall thickness
Unless
without
we
any
program
noticeable
them
errors.
that we're some sort of
Let us
god,
not understate that these items were made
and
by
they
an
can't
ancient machinist.
do that to us.
To produce this in clay would be outstanding.
Right?
To see it in granite is simply incredible.
But I think they just
There
they
are many
come to their own
pieces turned out of
conclusions
granite,
based on observation
porphyry, or
of our
basalt,
abilities.
all fully hollowed with decorative narrow undercut openings. The most remarkable of these have long necks. The fact remains we cannot replicate these artifacts today with techniques, crafts, or machinery. But before we feel any ineptitude of craftsmanship, Egyptology comes to the rescue with copper chisels and stone pounders. The tri-lobed schist disc of Sabu is a complete mystery and masterpiece. Some 24 inches in diameter, bizarre structure with extremely thin pieces turned out of schist. The large plate has a central hub some 3 inches in
This
diameter.
video would be amazing if they got
The
like
outside
some
rim,
old
which in
British
3
British guy
areas
to
spaced
narrate it.
evenly around the perimeter, is flared towards the central hub. If there was ever a case for advanced ancient stoneworking, this is it. It's made from a very fragile material called metasiltstone. Bending this material without fracturing it would be hard even for modern technology. According to some scientists, the Sabu disc raises important questions about our view of history. What was the purpose of this mysterious disc? Why on earth would ancient Egyptians create such an intricate object? 5,000 years ago, people were not supposed to possess the necessary tools to work material like this. Why would ancient Egyptians go to
Why?
all this effort to create the disc if
Oh,
it
that was
didn't have a specific
that was the
purpose?
attempt.
The Sabu
Was that
disc is
23?
the subject of wild speculations as a result from everything involving rotating
We
energy
can do that
to
over and over
acoustic
again.
knowledge. There were not
That was
just
really
a
good
few of
attempt.
these stoneware items. Apparently there were thousands discovered around the Step Pyramid. The Step Pyramid is considered the oldest stone pyramid in Egypt. Although Petrie found some fragments of similar bowls at Giza, the majority have been found at the Step Pyramid, at least in quantity.
Alright, I need some
Many of them have
ChatGPT
been
humor in
scribed,
my life.
actually scratched onto
put
them
those commands
the
in.
symbols of the very earliest kings of Egypt from the time before the pharaohs. The primitive skill of the inscriptions provokes many to think those were not made by the same craftsmen who created the bowls in the first place. Perhaps they were added later by those who acquired them as heirlooms. Is highly plausible. Who made these objects? Why? How? Where? And when? What happened to the master craftsmen? The advanced tubular drilling techniques. W.M. Flinders Petrie
depressions. Later on, they used flat stones and sand to grind the stone to
conventional archaeologists who did
One of the world's biggest mysteries is the Great Pyramid of Giza. It is the only pyramid on our planet that has 8 sides, and not actually 4. Each of the pyramid's 4 sides are eventually split from the base to the tip by very subtle concave indentations. It is believed that the discovery was made in the 1940 by the British Air Force pilot named P. Groves as he was flying over the pyramid. Groves reportedly noticed that the strange sight and took the photograph showing only the shadows that reveal these indentations. Some believe these subtle lines only are visible from above, and at dawn and dusk on the spring and autumn equinoxes. This leads some conspiracy theorists to think that the ancient Egyptians built the pyramids to perhaps communicate with something above. On the east sides of Cheops pyramid, numerous outside blocks have been removed, revealing the huge underneath blocks. These larger blocks would have gone unnoticed if smaller outside blocks had not actually been removed. Even the visible outside blocks are an impressive size, and in some cases providing shelter from the blistering heat of the day. It is estimated to comprise some 2.4 million stone blocks, averaging 2.5 tons each, plus additional blocks weighing considerably more lying deep within the pyramid, where they serve special functions. There are also a number of surface blocks that are identical to those seen in Cusco, Peru. Notice the unusual shaping of these stones on the pyramid, the strange nodules protruding from them. The very same method of shaping these blocks, along with strange nodules, can be found throughout Peru, indicating the exact same method of construction.
You're there.
The stones in the Great Pyramid
You're
are
admin,
placed
man.
with
You're there.
organized
You're on the
precision.
list of
As we can see on the
people
close-up,
that can
precision cuts have been made as
moderate
part
the
of the
bot.
overall construction. Today, there are many blocks that have disappeared over the years. However, the Great Pyramid would have had a number of further outside layers, as well as a limestone covering, as we can see the remnants of. This would have been given it a white colouring. It's even speculated that the pyramid tip would have actually been covered in gold, making them such a tremendous sight across the Egyptian landscape. Similar constructions between Egypt and other places, like Sacsayhuamán in Peru, these strange blocks have been talked about by scientists quite recently, debating that if these were actually real rocks or some type of concrete-shaped stones. Analysis on the stones suggests that there is some form of concrete mix within them. Of course, all these blocks from around the world are apparently all been created by using similar tools like this, bronze and copper tools. This is what we've been told, and it also includes the Inca civilization. But the Inca civilization wasn't always where we find it today. They initially lived on the shores of Lake Titicaca. Island of the Sun is one of the main places where you can find Inca-built homes, and if you look at these buildings, you can actually see that they're far from the manufactured and massive stone blocks that we find throughout other areas of Peru. The Inca stone buildings utilize small stones. This is what you refer to as Inca-built. However, it is assumed that other fantastically large stones around Peru was from a previous civilization, referred to as the pre-Inca.
Okay, we got joke.
However,
Okay, we got joke and dad joke.
Archaeologists still claim that all these large buildings that we see around Peru were in fact all Inca. And as we can see, this is in fact an Inca building, utilizing adobe mud and small stones. You can actually see the adobe mud was actually applied to the stones, giving them a surface covering, you could say. Far from what we might see in other places in Peru, such as Teotihuacan. These huge stone blocks and precision
That's
cut
fucking hilarious.
were nothing like
Are
what
you
the
serious
Inca
right
were
now?
actually doing around about the same time. On
Are you
islands
serious
where they
right
lived.
now?
The Gateway of the Sun is one huge stone that was cut, single block, and unfortunately over the years it has developed a crack in it through obviously slight land movement. But we can see it's full of precision. You can see that it's cut precisionally, it's lined up to the skies precisionally, and you can see the actual mathematics that are involved. in the cutting of this stone. And it's still a mystery how it was even cut in the first place. This is of course a granite stone, a very hard type of stone. We can also see in areas of Peru that there were little small channels cut into these stones and, ridiculously, small drill mark holes. Now this edge of this stone is so sharp that it could in fact cut your finger. How they channeled these stones out and how they even cut these small precision drill holes into them, we have no idea. It's not the only type of blocks that are like that are found in Peru. There's obviously the very famous H-stone blocks of Puma Bungo.
I gotta
and these fit together
more
like precision. They link into each other like a Meccano set, and creating a very strong type walls, which are also, you know, can stand up to the shaking of the ground of some types of different types of earthquakes that they may have had across the region. The stones are not plentiful. There are only a handful of these H-type stones still around, and they were originally buried. But around those locations, there has been skulls which have been dug up around Peru, dug up around these ancient sites, presumably to be pre-Inca. But the skulls are quite different than what you might say are anatomical human beings. They seem to have an elongated skull. Question is, are these actually just down to boarding, shaping the skull from birth, or is it something more? However, scientists have looked at these, though that there has allegedly been analysis carried out. These photographs are taken from the Ica Museum in Peru, and they have said analysis had been carried out, but they didn't have the results, and that went on for many years. But new research, especially from Brian Forster regarding the Paracas skulls, and this is what they're called, would suggest that they were actually born with elongated heads and does not show evidence of boarding. This is what was said that the Inca people looked like, according to illustrations. Of course, they didn't have any facial hair, but one thing that you will notice is that they did not have elongated skulls. Far different than the Paracas skulls that we've seen. Of course, due to drought, the Inca civilization couldn't stay where they were, and they had to move from the shores of Lake Titicaca and found other places. One of those main places was the Sacred Valley, known as Cusco, and this is a very early photograph of what it might have looked like. But when they got there obviously were other tribes, and other tribes were known as the Wari. This is a Wari construction type wall, very similar to Inca type walls. And as you can see, these were plentiful in that region as well. We believe the two societies actually probably merged. However, there would seem to be evidence to suggest that there was also a civilization in that area before them, probably by thousands of years. And these were referred to as the pre-Inca. As you can see on this build, you can see there's pre-Inca construction at the bottom, but up at the top you can see where there's Inca build been added to it later on. It would seem most of Cusco has been designed in this manner, utilising pre-Inca buildings and adding Inca stones to them. So basically they utilised the buildings that were there, the foundations that were there from a pre-existing civilization.
Oh my god.
Just as we can see at the Coricancha. Now the Coricancha, which is the first Inca building, it's said to be built in Cusco, is said to be at the navel of Cusco, the heart of Cusco, and is round about the centre of it. And there's this unusual wall, which is definitely pre-Inca built, and of course Inca construction around it. As you can see, an amazing wall, which is actually curved stones that they've utilised on the front of it, fashioning it. Now parts of actually this wall, which have moved over the years, but initially you probably wouldn't have been able to fit a piece of paper between them, and pre-Inca did not use any form of mortar. What they did do though is lock stones together, utilising these keystones, and poured molten metal into them and let them set. This caused the stones to not be able to move from each other. So, in areas where there was earthquakes, this would have been certainly very handy. And of course this may be the reason why so much of the pre-Incas type buildings have remained intact for thousands of years. But it's not the only place around the world that have used these keystones. Ethiopia, Cambodia, Vietnam, Egypt, India, all over the world have used the same method of locking stones together in ancient sites. Not only that, they have the capabilities of utilizing some type of tools that can actually bore right through granite stone. And you can actually see the bore marks on this. What type of equipment must they have had to cut these types of stones? We do know that on some occasions there was also almost a millimetre cut into the granite stone per revolution. What were they actually using? What type of equipment? And you can see the actual boring score marks here in this other piece of granite stone. This one, in fact, is found in Egypt and is situated in rose quartz granite, which is even stronger than your average granite stone. In the middle of Koichancha, there is this, whatever it is, a cut-out stone, a well, whatever it be, in the centre. And it's very interesting that they've actually planted flowers around this because they want to deter people from stepping over and taking photographs inside. And inside there's a perfectly cut out, sharp corners, no ridges, no bumps, very smooth. It's like one piece of stone is completely gutted out, just as we see in the Egyptian chamber, the king's chamber itself, where there's a sarcophagus which is cut out in the same manner. What is interesting is that in Sacsayhuaman, which is positioned at number 1, to the Koichancha, which is in position 8, there is a mountain of bedrock below these ancient sites, and they all line up. There is in fact tunnels that go through the bedrock underneath Peru, Cusco, which travel and link up all these ancient sites from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. How that actually was cut out, the bedrock, we have no idea, but there does seem to be underground caves cut out, linking up these ancient sites, which are all in a row and lined up to the stars. What also is interesting is that Koichancha it has a huge amount of
I think I might be done for tonight, honestly.
This is why it's been called.
I'm pretty let down by the joke command, it's telling the same joke every time.
And also the navy. And it is very interesting that the amount of electromagnetic energy or geomagnetic anomalies are taking place and registered and measured from that location. Outside of the Koichancha, in the streets of Cusco, you can see aligned buildings again, and the streets tend to be aligned to the north. And as you can see on this image, you can see some of the old pre-Inca type building blocks, and it's been further built on with Inca stone and plaster applied and painted and so on and so forth.
That's a sick.
You can see where
that's
these
such a sick plot. Holy jeez!
On top of pre-existing
They
dwellings.
inadvertently interrupt significant events like the moon landing. Are you kidding me? The signing of a declaration. This is a $1 million idea.
The one above it. Again, pre-Inca built, and not being able to fit a piece of paper between them, with no mortar used. And what is interesting is that when they were actually constructing the paving and digging down in this area, they actually found skulls again. And those skulls were in fact elongated skulls, what we might refer to possibly the pre-Inca, the Paracas people. And of course they had some very unusual shaped skulls and hugely elongated. In fact, statistically speaking, their brains would have had a larger mass within them. The most finest and built wall in the Americas
So those are some of the new commands.
Perfectly aligned by the micromillimeter, and again, you cannot fit a razor blade or piece of paper between them. No mortar used. A perfect pre-Inca wall, which seems to have lasted for thousands upon thousands of years. To the left of that, you can see earlier type construction, and of course Inca type construction. This one's quite amusing. To the left, we can see what is referred to as probably pre-Inca type building blocks, and you can see the strangely cut shapes. it would seem that they've really made this difficult and gone to town making these rocks look unusual on the walls with these very unusual nodules. To the right is in fact the Spanish conquistadors' efforts and attempts to try and rebuild the wall similar. Of course, nowhere near, and they've actually utilised mortar to hold the wall together. But some of these stone blocks are amazing, and they do have these unusual shapes, some of them up to 12 sides. Why would they make it so difficult? Why, you know, they could have just simply used cut straight stones. But they haven't, and they've made them in such a fashion, and each and every stone is bulbous. It's like it has to stand out from the wall. Lots of them have these strange nodules on them again, just as we've seen on the Egyptian pyramid. And as we can see on the close-ups, people have suggested were they a method of moving stones. It's really unknown, but they are found, these nodules on these types of stones, all over Peru, and not just in Peru, other places around the world. It would seem the same architect travelled the planet. But there are hidden messages within these stones, and as we can see, some of these pre-Inca built walls show animals, and we can see from the image this is a puma.
Yeah, it's better at telling a story. Seems like it does better with adjectives, because I use like the words humorous and surprising and.
Am I actually seeing some type of image in there? And there are a number of these images hidden within the
For
stone.
wholesome, I think I used the word like inspiring.
And this is another one. And as you can
forgiveness,
see,
atonement. I didn't even use the word forgiveness.
That's
a forgiveness a lot.
And what we're seeing in total there is in fact some type of serpent or even snake. Similar type stone construction is also found in Japan. This is the Imperial Palace Wall in Japan. And again, they are cut unusually to fit together, and keystones tend to be used within them, holding the blocks tightly for movement. Again, it's very difficult to fit anything between them, and again, there is no mortar used. A very similar design. And we see this in China as well, in walls in China. Unusually shaped stones fitted together to make a precision wall. In Easter Island, there are also precision cut stones. Most people just think Easter Island consists of these large heads, and there's a huge mystery surrounding these large heads as well, as to actually how old they are and who actually constructed them and why they did that.
Oh, that was almost it.
But in Easter Island also has some constructed walls. We know from Easter Island, from the images, that most of the heads actually are facing outwards and not actually inwards to land. Most of them do actually face outwards and would have had eyes.
Wow, he actually went to the glass.
Made
it was dope. You see that?
Plaster and other things that they could manufacture to look up at the sky. Of course, it's a very strange place, Easter Island, and huge magnetic anomalies due to this volcano or crater. We really not too sure what that represents, but the magnetic anomalies there are off the chart. And they do have constructed walls, and as we can see here, just as we've seen in other places around the world, they have these precision cut stones and unusually shaped, and this smaller stone being fitted right in between that makes up the wall. And then we can see precision cut, and again, no mortar used, cannot fit a piece of paper between them, and again we're seeing the same type of architecture. Look at this one, it's so tiny. And it is, in fact, over 2 feet long, so it's a channeled stone, it fits in right through, precision cut. So why would they do that? Why would they have a stone piece taken out and a tiny piece fitted? It's as if to demonstrate how good and that they could actually do this. And as we've said, the debate over these large heads, stone heads, aren't actually just heads, there's bodies attached to them. And it's suggested that they may be considerably a lot older than what we're actually told. Reason being is that when they actually dug down and realised how much of these stones there were, carved across their bodies and chests were belts and symbols, why would they have gone through all that
really bad session
all
today?
These types of carvings on these
really
stones
great, but like in terms
we
of
believe that they were
chatting
actually
with
buried
friends, but I mean really
accidentally. You would
bad in
see
terms of
that the
gameplay.
soil around these large heads are in fact some type of silt, as if they were
Like,
covered by
really?
some huge tidal catastrophe thousands of years
I think you just
ago.
gotta get used to the dark room in the left straight.
Believed to be around 12,000 years old.
Just this whole setup
These
is just
excavations
so
are still
different.
taking place, and new discoveries are still being found throughout Easter Island. And as
'Cause
we
it
can
can't
see, when you
reload.
start digging down, you see these wonderful carvings.
That's
across
why
the
I'm all
bodies.
messed up, because I
And
can't, don't have
not
time
the
to
only strange
reload.
discoveries that have been found throughout the last 10 years. The
Whereas
Göbekli
the other
Tepe
one,
in
you
Turkey
can
seems to be
reload,
one of the most
always
major
reload.
discoveries in the
I was
ancient
taking that for
world,
granted.
which predates
That's
even the Sumerian
that's it. That's everything. I
and
think
we
I
thought
just
the
realized
Sumerians
it.
were the first time people that built huge construction buildings and lined things up to the stars and had mathematics and language and all sorts of things. No. In fact, this was going on in Turkey long before. In fact, buried 10 to 12,000 years ago, the age is roughly 14,000 years old. Now, what we actually believe here is that these dwellings and temples, or whatever they are, with these precisionally lined stones to the stars, were purposely buried for some reason. We know the Sumerians, which we initially thought was the first major culture to build these wonderful places, was around 6,000 years ago, and this is what you call a ziggurat. But Göbekli Tepe is a place which is revealing new discoveries on a daily basis, because it's across the whole hillside, and they're still digging, and still finding new areas. And what we're finding is that the standing stones are aligned to the stars and have unusual markings on them of animals and strange symbols. Also achievable is this. This is allegedly Inca. Their greatest efforts to probably manufacture stone walls very similar to the pre-Inca, and as you can see, there are some good work that the Inca could do, but it doesn't stand up to the test of time when it comes to pre-Inca dwellings. This is a pre-Inca wall, and it wasn't just a matter of the surface that you see. It's also important that they did the work that you don't see, such as behind the wall. The back of the actual stone is just as good and placed as it is on the front. Precisionally cut, both sides. No stone was unturned, excuse the pun. However, this Inca type one stone,
It's really soft,
as you can see, is clearly a cheat, because it's not precisionally cut.
I understand what it is now. It's the
In fact, all
ammo.
they cared about was the front and how it looked. However, moving stones aside, you can start to reveal that they were actually cheating.
I understand now.
This is, in fact, one of the stones.
Gotta go for the
on
headshots
Kawichanjo. Now, you can just barely see the joining between
I
these
can do
two
that.
huge stone blocks. In fact, you cannot fit a razor blade between them. And this is in the inside of the stone, the backside and the outside, so they made no difference in the side you see and the side you don't see. But there are an unusual, a number of small obelisk-like types constructions around. This one, small stone, seems to have unusual face and markings on them. It has clearly a featured person with hands and a belt, and this is said to be Viracocha. This is actually situated at Tiwanaku in Peru. And the story has it is that Viracocha was in fact one of the gods. He came from the seas and delivered new information and architecture and agriculture, and taught them many things. And Viracocha is also written to say that he came from the stars initially. So it's very confusing as to where he
We're also going to go back
What is
for
interesting
Bunker
also
1
is the
essay.
fact that he's described and
We're going to go back for
on
23.
these stone blocks
That's what we're going to do.
with a beard, just as a European, very European.
Maybe
looking.
next
And of course,
stream.
Peruvian people didn't have facial hair, so it's certainly interesting as to where Viracocha actually came from.
Because we got to do that.
And as you can see, Cusco is very, very tightly packed. Very small.
That needs to
streets,
happen.
But there is pre-Inca built construction everywhere, and very friendly people, as you see throughout Peru as well. traditionalists. And of
Now that I know to
course,
push down C at the second cam, saves so much time.
tightly put together.
It's
The
genius.
streets also are very tight, and as you can see, just as there are many pre-Inca built wall with Incas type construction on top of it, making it into a home.
Stop on a dime.
These walls
One bullet, second cam.
cut again,
Down C.
and there are so many of them. They're everywhere. If you travel just out of Cusco by a couple of miles, you'll come to Sacsayhuaman. And again, this is said to be an Inca fortress. It clearly is pre-Inca by its build. But the recent information that we're getting back from scientists taking samples from these rocks is that they are actually finding some forms of concrete mixing within them. So the question is, are these actual stones made from concrete, a concrete mould and placed precisionally, or are they in fact cut stones? And you can see the efforts going into these cuts.
So fucking shit.
Rounded, but perfectly.
Maybe I do gotta fucking look those up, see.
They were also very clever, the pre-Incas, because they also knew how to channel water very well around the city and around their towns. And of course, water is obviously very important for crops and animals and drinking and cleaning and so on and so forth. Some of these rocks are absolutely huge, and how they actually moved, we have no idea. Initially we thought that they were quarried from 72 kilometres away, which is actually downhill, so they would have had to carry this stone uphill to the actual fortress site. The walls are said to have been heated kind of treated in such a way with heat up to 1,000 degrees Celsius. Now that's what the surface evidence would suggest, but creating a 1,000 degrees Celsius fire isn't just a matter of just dumping a load of sticks and wood together and burning, because you would never generate that type of heat. Again, there are many mysteries, and as we can see, this is Brian Forster actually, this is one of his photographs, and just above him you can see again a wonderful wall and a paw print that seems to be a puma type paw print, which we can see above him. But cut stones are everywhere, and it would seem like it must have been very easy for them to do. This is all from a single piece of granite stone, and you can actually see this particular stone is a level 7 in strength, and if you were to cut this with bronze tools, which are level 3 to 3.5, just simply wouldn't have worked. What you're
So
actually
terrible.
cutting is a rock which is stronger than the tool that you actually would be using. And this is what mainstream archaeologists are always telling us. It applies the same thing around the world. But these particular cut marks, these steps are absolutely perfect, perfectly level within 1/10
Such a
of a
terrible
degree.
session.
And as you can see, being measured here, amazing work, and how it's all cut from one single piece of stone is a mystery. Huge weathering processes across the stone, yes, there is lots of them. However, there was also many cuts within them, so it suggests that these cut marks were made thousands of years ago. But it's as if like they just cut out very simply, like scooping out a piece of butter. Some of these constructions are huge. This particular one, which is 3 large stones, which were in fact upside down the other way around at one time, and they were all interconnected. This is in fact a staircase, but the whole huge stone is upside down. It's as if some catastrophe may have happened thousands of years ago, dislodging some of these stones and tumbling. Some of these stones are actually just littered with cut marks in them, scoop marks in them. What equipment was actually used, how to cut these out, is really a mystery. That's the biggest mystery. Where are all the tools that we needed to utilise to make these cuts in stones? What type of machinery must there have been? And they're scattered everywhere. Some of them actually cut straight into the actual mountain sides. Pieces taken out, and of course caves constructed within them. And as we can see, all these cut marks on local mountains, and of course this is again granite stone. And we can see when we enter into the area which has been completely cut out, there is in fact a room. But the walls are so smooth and polished that this suggesting that they've actually applied a process of heating them to the rock would almost go to melting point. That's thousands and
I
thousands
don't know,
of
maybe like 9 more
Celsius.
minutes
How would they
or
have done
less.
that? It would have required heating and polishing and heating and polishing, but how did they generate
Probably
that
less.
much heat? So exactly the same thing applies in Egypt and these huge sarcophagi. We don't know actually what was in them. The Egyptian government, when they discovered several of these, said they were empty. However, that's debatable. But inside are precisionally cut and so smooth that they feel like marble. They are in fact made of granite stone, just as this is made from granite stone on the right hand side. This is in fact in a location known as Pisac in Peru, and what we see is a pre-Inca build to the right and an Inca build to the left. And of course, you know, some of the Inca builds were actually using adobe mud between the stones. If they were all created by Inca, then why do we have two significantly different types of manufacture? Also, there were areas near and inside of a cave where, again, there are altars that seem to be looking like altars cut out of a single piece of stone. Now, stone masonries have looked at this and said the actual amount of work to cut out a stone and then cut into it again and then cut into that again and make these sharp corners cuts is tremendous work and very, very delicate, utilising specialised machinery. How were these made? There are also many places which are said to be maybe altars of some sort, secret doorways that don't really go anywhere. This one is a doorway, and it is a door that doesn't go into a room, it only goes in for about a foot, this door. Was it ever finished? People are saying that it was never finished. Or was it finished? Was it an altar? Was it some type of doorway to another portal? Whatever the reasons that they did these things is remain the mystery. And as you can see a better picture of it here, precisionally cut, again straight in and smooth, as if like it'd been polished and heated. There are 3 levels of construction work that we often see around if you visit Peru, and it's always best to keep off the beaten track, the normal places where you would go with the tourist groups, because there's so much to see. On this particular photograph you can see again another type of altar or something similar where water was running out. And what is in fact interesting is that earlier photographs, and I've actually seen one earlier photograph of this, there was in fact a pyramid stone actually in the bottom of this fountain, and the water actually fell on it. Now that's actually starts into a whole new process of questioning, why do they have a pyramid and water falling on top of it? Interesting. But you can see from this photograph that there are pre-Inca type construction around it as well. To the right you can see pre-Inca to the right, and of course Inca up above, and of course adobe mud being utilised between them. More or less 3 different type ages of construction. But they are very aware of the chakra symbol in Peru, and of course this lines up magnetically with areas right across Peru. And as we can see, ancient sites right across the Peru do in fact line up, and this is not by chance. They are major megalithic sites. If we look at Ollantaytambo, there also again seems to be 3 levels of construction, as if people have come, a civilization constructed something, and then they've disappeared. 1,000 years later another civilization comes along and utilizes it, and they disappear, and then another civilization such like the Inca come along and they utilize it. The question is not, we cannot date stone properly. This is a real problem for us. But we have to look around and try and theorize as to how old these things actually are. These in fact look like giant steps, and in fact they're not. They're actually they're just platforms where they were probably growing plants and things like that. But in fact they do look like giant steps, and you can see it from the photo on the left, 2001, the photo to the right, 2015. It hasn't changed too much, but there are some amazing sites around Peru. As we climb in altitude in Peru, again we still see these pre-Inca stone cut blocks, and we can tell by the type of markings on these blocks, these growths, how old they actually could be, and some of these should suggest that they are thousands and thousands of years old. How on earth they actually lifted? This is the size of of a bus. And how this actually got up there, this is part of the temple. And a single cut piece of stone with markings and bulbous pieces sticking out. Was obviously a larger building of some sort. It must have been a temple of some sort. It's thousands of feet up in the air, on top of mountains. And we can see from the stones in the background that some of these have been dislodged, probably through water, through earthquake, catastrophes. We really do not know. And you can see again the dislodging of these blocks, but again precisionally cut, and when they were lined properly, they wouldn't have been able to fit a piece of paper between them. But these stone blocks are absolutely huge, and as you can see, there must have been some type of temple of some sort. It is interesting though that as you look further down, you see these pre-Inca stone huge blocks, but there may have been some catastrophe that took place that shifted this wall, leaving gaps, and the Inca found it and filled those gaps up with Inca type stones. Certainly significantly different than the pre-Inca type stones. Probably one of some of the largest stones that you'll find up on the top of mountains is these temple walls, and again strange large bulbous areas sticking out of them. What they were for, we do not know. But again, no matter where you go, you will see as if one civilization has come along and utilised a pre-existing one. We can see the pre-existing pre-Inca built wall here, sorry, the parts that go round the doors at least, and then we can see Inca type construction that's been added to them. Exactly the same applies here, pre-Inca type wall, this is from 1930s as well, and we can see the Inca type structure on top of it. But cut stones, yes there are. They are precisionally cut stones, just as we find them in Egypt. This particular stone, you can see a saw mark in it. How they actually cut this stone is, again, one of the biggest mysteries. Where is the technology that was utilised to cut and move these stones? They are perfectly cut at 90-degree angles as well. So there was certainly a lot of mathematics that was involved in the precision cutting of these.
Wait, why?
Stone extracted from bedrock. Well, this is probably one of the biggest mysteries, and one of the biggest clues as to what technology they must have had to do so. We can see these small shaped areas in the stones, literally in cliffside, granite cliffs, and where something's come along and just cut out a perfectly rectangular piece of rock out of the bedrock. We can see it here. But we have to question, you can cut right round this in a rectangular fashion, but how do they cut behind it and leaving the back part very smooth? And in fact, just to add injury to insult, or insult to injury, should we say, there's that piece. That piece actually fits in there, the bottom one. And it was left purposely, just to kind of say, hey, this is what we can do. How did they cut behind this and get it so smooth? Cutting it out from the bedrock must have been an impossible task.
It's getting better.
Cutting around it, fairly easy. We just do not know what type of machinery could have been used to do this. But if you do get off the beaten track and you get around the back of these areas,
it's a good run, but it's not faster than my better pace. It's not that good.
And they are clearly show evidence of machine marks. There are machine mark cuts on these ledges, and we do not know what on earth managed to cut these rocks in this same format. You don't tend to see this. You go on the normal tourist routes, you won't see this. This is something that you've got to get off the tourist routes, go and explore yourself, because there are even some more strangely profound things you might find, such as these machine cut platforms. And you can clearly see something had to have cut this flat, a whole piece taken out, but left the evidence of the machine mark behind them. Again, more cut stones, slices of them taken out. It was as if that whatever technology they were utilising must have been easy for them to do so. We also have this unusual mount, and in the cliffside here, which is known as Pinkaluna, Pinkaluna Mountain, is a face, and it is just around about, well, from what we see, around about this area here, and also
Woo,
this area here.
116, that's what I mean. It was exactly the same piece. Pretty good run, pretty good run.
It's 500 feet. And if it isn't in fact a face, it does actually look like a face, and many archaeologists have said yes, it's certainly
really fast mainframe opening. Due to that extra pause.
Some type of face on the side of this mountain. A huge feat. 500-foot carved face. Of course, one of the most famous sites is Machu Picchu, said to have took place.
Might be the last one of the night. Let's see.
Years to build.
What?
Not that very much.
Like what?
But the whole top of this mountain has been sheared off for the construction of these buildings, Inca buildings. And this wasn't discovered by the Spanish actually never found it. You know, they were just so out of the way and could not be seen and up in the mountains that they weren't discovered. It's an amazing feat to have actually carried up stone blocks like this. But they did make these terraces. And again, not only is it important to make terraces so that you don't fall and kill yourself with thousands of feet of drop, they made these terraces, which also comes in very handy for planting food and farming and animals and so on and so forth at such a high altitude. And it is high up there. It's actually start to get difficult to breathe when you get up there. How did they manage to move such massive stones? Now this one was photographed from Machu Picchu in 1911. And again, you can see here with the 2 arrows from this 1911 photograph that there are in fact huge stone blocks up there. They must have had to carry them up, and how did they carry them up all those thousands of feet with such a lack of oxygen in the air? I can only assume that they must have been climatized, and they must have a certain method of getting these stones up there. Again,
I'm going to sign off.
From the same location.
I'll read
But
somebody.
what is interesting is that this team
Thanks for being here, Moonraker and Lurkers.
and what did they find when
Appreciate
they looked down
it.
there was lots of different types of skulls. This is the Temple of Three Windows. Again, precisionally cut. If you look actually the way the windows are cut, it's not just as simple as a number of 4 stones. What they've actually done is that they've carved them and shaped them in a certain way, just like the pre-Inca always did. At the top is known as the Hitching Stone, the top of Machu Picchu. This is not a stone that's been added. It is in fact the mountain top. And it's made from the sun quartz and iron granite. And anybody going near this with a compass will in fact cause it to turn tremendously, literally 180 degrees, and it still does it today. Even though that they won't actually let you near this particular rock, they will show demonstrations occasionally, archaeologists, that it does in fact reflect the compass on a regular basis. Just as these archaeologists are testing with their compass. You go near the pitching stone, or the pitching rod as you would call it, and the compass swings 180 degrees. The Peruvians didn't just build this place at Machu Picchu by chance. They strategically picked places around Peru where there are huge electromagnetic energies and geomagnetic anomalies. Again, more constructions, and you can see pre-Inca, Inca, and an earlier form. You can see all these different types of construction all in one place in Peru, demonstrating different civilizations that have been utilising these pre-existing places. There is in fact a cave on the back of Machu Picchu, which not many people tend to know, and when you actually go in there is actually stone buildings being built in there, pre-Inca stones. This again was a place that was being utilised. Also on the lake, near Lake Titicaca, there are again 2 forms of construction. At the bottom of these is pre-Inca, and then of course the Inca added on top of them with this adobe type mud applying to them. There's also the Silestani Towers, which near Lake Titicaca, and as you can see how high these are compared to. Now this was once said to be at the shoreline of Lake Titicaca, so we can see how much it's actually disappeared over the years and fell, Lake Titicaca. Now what's interesting is that these are scalloped in certain ways, the stones, but they do make an acoustic sound of a perfect A sharp, which we've heard exactly the same thing being generated or in resonance rooms in pyramids, the A sharp. Probably one of the most mysterious places is the Gate of the Gods, or better known as Aramuno. Now the location seems to show
it's
that
the last
this
run
was
of the
being
night.
utilised as some type of altar. But the ancients say, the Incas say that it must have been the ancients, it wasn't them that constructed this was
Oh my
always
gosh.
there. Again, this door is probably about 15 feet high. Don't let it fool you, it's very large. But the whole thing seems to be machine cut. It's got those strange machine cut marks again.
It's a
and we do
PB
not
paste,
know
maybe. Whatever.
what
It's the
created
last
that.
one.
However, we don't, you know, whatever this is used for, it's known as the Gate of the Gods. The ancestors believe that it travels, it's a portal to another dimension, another world. Who really knows? There's a number of tests that need to be carried out in regarding resonance and what the effects might be at this location. Of course, it's always, it would seem that it must have been always easy for them to cut stone and do remarkable things in stone. As for no reason whatsoever, really. We don't really know what the reason why they do this.
I didn't have enough health. That's so fast. That was like a 48 pass away.
Not know, or was
ridiculously
they built
fast.
their own altars and
That wasn't that fast.
But it must have been very easy to do.
Very fast.
You know, this piece of granite stone has been carved away.
I knew it though. I didn't have enough health.
Maybe it was a place
But
where
it's
they had
fine,
the
dude.
children test their
That
skills
was really
out on
good. I'm
cutting.
starting to
The methodology
know
of how
what
they
to
cut
do.
these stones must have been pretty simple.
The left
utilising
strafe
some
is
type
pretty
of
good. Even if you
machinery. It's the only
release
thing I
C
can
up,
imagine of.
it's kind of slow though.
Again, in
But that was a
Pumapunku,
really good sesh.
we have a stone block.
The
and
end.
it's
We
cut
had
in and
we
cut
were
in and cut
figuring
in
out
again.
the left strafe.
And perfect.
Thanks for being
perfectly,
here, bro. I'm gonna raid somebody.
You know, angles on them. But as we said earlier, the H stones of Pumapunku were discovered literally like this. It was all buried under mud at 13,000 feet. Now, what causes buildings to be dislodged and buried in mud at 13,000 feet? Well, it is assumed that there must have been a catastrophe, maybe a tidal wave at some time, and it must have been huge. So, an effect on Earth thousands of years ago that literally must have caused huge tidal movements to flood over the land at 13,000 feet, as we know it today. Throw down huge stone blocks like Lego bricks and bury them in silt and mud. In fact, Pumapunku was pretty much all buried. And what we see today, they've been moved, they've been dug up, and kind of reconstructed to some degree to try and figure out what was actually there. This is what we see today, and yes, these were not discovered like that. They were discovered like this, buried, just as most of Pumapunku was. And this is what we see today. They're all lined up, and the H blocks are amazing as they fit together. One block goes on top of the other, another sliding piece, and they all interlock in numerous different ways. Of course, there are huge stone blocks up there, weighing thousands of tons in Tiwanaku, and this one is a single cut piece of stone. It's cut out again. We don't know what would have been in there, and we don't actually know what the place would have been. Is it some type of temple? How on earth did they get these stone blocks up there in the first place? Again, if you actually look at the archaeology that's been taking place around Tiwanaku, when they dig down, they find these skulls. And these are, again, what we refer to as Paracas type skulls, the elongation. But it isn't just a matter of elongation, they do have an unusual ridge on their forehead. As we can see in these photographs, there is an unusual ridging. And what we do not see is the normal suture marks that we find in skulls in humans. Because when babies are born, they have a small hole that allows the skull to move over itself when they're being born, and we are left with those suture marks in our skulls, these small little lines of cracks, and of course these aren't being found in the Paracas skulls, so we have to question, you know, what type of people were these? Certainly their eyes were certainly different. There has been a number of different types of skulls, large bulbous ones as well as elongated skulls. As you can see in the photograph, the brain mass would have been quite considerable. And some of these are absolutely huge. Who were these strange people? Maybe these are the pre-Inca. Maybe these are the people, the missing civilization that's taken out of society, because everything's all Inca now. That these were in fact a pre-Inca civilization that travelled the world and carried their information regarding architecture. And this might be why we see the same type of stone constructions in China, in Ethiopia, in Cambodia, in Egypt, and pretty much all over the world. Who were these mysterious people? We do not know.